else is on?
It's okay, phone. I don't think we have anyone on the phone.
Sorry?
I don't think we have anyone on the phone.
We'll go ahead and call the April 26th regular city council meeting to order. Chief, would you lead us in the pledge, please?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Madam Clerk, would you call the roll, please?
Cease. Here. Casagranda. Here. Buckland.
Present.
DeMoss.
Here.
McClure.
Here.
Osinga.
Here.
Mayor Terry.
Yes.
You have a quorum, Mayor.
Thank you. So next on the agenda is citizen comments on any subject except those items scheduled for public hearing. Did we have anyone submit comments or ask to be called? And
Yes.
then I know we'll check too.
We had one person who wanted to be called and 2 to be read.
Great. Do you want to start off with the call?
Yeah.
Hello, this is Carol.
Hey, Carol, it's Jessica with the City Council. We are ready for your citizen comments.
Thank you. Cheryl Griswold, inside city limits. I'm opposed to renaming Dairy Hill Lane to Chamberlain Road. Council Resolution 85-10 established a street naming and numbering system to provide a standard approach to the naming and numbering of streets in city limits. The Chamberlain Road recommendation in Resolution 2021-053 does not meet all the sections of that resolution, whereas Dairy Hill Lane does. I researched Resolution 85-10, which was not included in the P&Z packet or in your packet. The criteria for street naming include names should be pleasant sounding, appropriate, easy to read so that the public and children in particular can handle the name in an emergency situation, and should enhance pride of home ownership. Unaccessible street names avoid names which are frivolous, complicated, or undesirable, and those which include unconventional spelling and compound words. Both names are appropriate as they honor history. As noted in the packet, Chamberlain was a longtime resident, local and state politician, and a gardener who lived on Government Road on what is now Chamberlain Road. The fascinating story of a unique pioneer Alaskan dairy farm was not included in either resolution. Briefly, Dairy Hill Lane was named for the Pioneer Dairy Farm located nearby on the hill bearing the same name. The museum has a wonderful exhibit if you want to learn more about cow raincoats and other fun details. Dairy Hill Lane is pleasant sounding, utterly charming, and easy to read. The name is appropriate and also helpful to emergency responders as it is located on the geographic feature of Dairy Hill. Pride of ownership may be hard to judge, but I'd be thrilled to have such a wonderful, evocative name for my address. Visitors and locals alike are intrigued by such an interesting name, especially in Seward, Alaska. Chamberlain Road can be anywhere, which is not helpful to responders. It's not easy to read and uses unconventional spelling. It was misspelled in Resolution 85-10, and it took years to get the street signs corrected. There are no features remaining that are associated with the name. Furthermore, the request for a change comes from residents whose street address is not visible from Dairy Hill Lane. If the address was properly posted according to code, complaints about missing deliveries would likely be resolved more effectively and with less controversy than eliminating the Dairy Hill Lane name. I'd sure be sad for Seward to lose Dairy Hill Lane. Thank you for your consideration. Carol.
Thank you, Carol. And then we have 2 of them that I will read.
Thank you.
this letter is from Harold Faust. Madam Clerk, please forward this note to the council members, and if possible, please have the following statement read during the citizens' comment period. My name is Harold Faust, street address 1404 Vista Avenue, Dairy Hill, Seward. I am a lifelong citizen of Seward as well as a lifelong resident of Dairy Hill. My wife and I moved into the new home we built on Vista Avenue in December 2019, essentially just moving across the street. We have always enjoyed the historic name Dairy Hill for our neighborhood and hope that name will not fade from community consciousness with removing that reference from the official street name. Whatever small confusion is presently caused by the name Dairy Hill Lane intersecting the highway at the north and then the name Chamberlain Road being used above the lagoon can certainly be addressed by a bit of signage. Both names have history along that route, but neither one is most significant. The Seward Dairy was an important local business along that north end for more than 30 years and one that we feel should be remembered. Thank you for your consideration of our heartfelt hope that the name Dairy Hill Lane can be preserved. And then the second one, do you want me to read it or ask her if she wants to come up since she is in the room?
You could ask her if she wants to come up, or you could
You
read
want
it.
to come in? You want me to read it? Okay. So from Cheryl Cease. This is the letter that she sent to Planning and Zoning on April 23rd, 2021. Dear Planning and Zoning Commission, I am writing to you regarding Resolution 2021-010. I am strongly opposed to renaming Dairy Hill Lane to Chamberlain Road. This represents a threat against Seward's history. Dairy Hill holds an important space in our early history, and it would be a great loss to see you make this change. Surely some other street could be named Chamberlain. Maybe one of the new streets in the new subdivision above Dora Way. Please do not sacrifice our history for a current desire. I cannot speak on behalf of the Seward Historic Preservation Commission, but I do believe that if we had taken this up at our meeting, my fellow commissioners would agree with me. Many others disagree with renaming Dairy Hill Lane too. I know that you spend a lot of time, thought, and energy in making your decisions, and I am grateful to you for that. Thank you for your consideration of my request and for your service to our community. And then she also read a brief section of a letter from Stephen Lear that was sent to her and the Seward Historic Preservation Commission be read as well.
You wrote the wrong letter.
I'm on the second one now.
Oh, okay. Do you have one though that's dated Friday?
April 23rd, just April 5th was the one I just read, and then January 13th. The two. So on the January 13th, the dairy no longer exists. The old buildings and the two photographs of the dairy, an early one from 1922, 1024, and a later one about 1939 to 1940 are not in existence. The dairy was closed in 1956. An existing building, a barn, was built about 1940. This building in the future will likely be torn down to make the land useful for building. This building is not significant as a historical site. The old dairy site located in the center of a current home site and a distance from Chamberlain Street does not make it feasible for a sign to show the dairy. And that was the last one.
And is anyone signed up to speak?
Let's put up. We'll do the first one.
Is anyone signed up to speak?
No, ma'am.
Okay, thank you. Next on the agenda is the approval of the agenda and consent agenda, and I'm looking for a motion and a second.
I move for the approval of the agenda and the consent agenda.
I'll second.
I believe there was gonna be a request potentially to have resolution 2021-047 on the consent. So I'm throwing that out there to see if there's any objections. And then, I myself was, gonna throw out there that we put resolution 2021-055 on the consent. Do you have an objection?
No, just one.
Okay. So if there's no objections to those two, we'll put those on consent. Any other comments? Councilmember DeMoss?
I would like to pull resolution 2021-053.
I'll second it. That's what I was gonna do.
Okay, so
That's what I was
seems like
doing.
that's, any other changes, to the agenda?
Hold on.
Okay.
I wanted to pull 2021-054.
Okay. I'll look around one more time. Councilmember?
I'd like to poll for purpose of more information, 2021-048 and 2021-051. Oh, and sorry, 2021-050.
I'll second it.
Do you have any, Councilmember?
No, I was just gonna second her. Somebody should
So
second it.
it just takes one.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I mean, when we're doing on the agenda, it just takes one.
Okay, okay.
Madam Clerk, I think we're ready for a vote.
So voting on the approval of the agenda and consent agenda with resolution 2021-047 and 2021-055 on consent, and resolution 2021-048, 050, 051, 053, and 054 pulled from consent. Osenga,
Yes.
Cease,
Yes.
Bachman,
Yes.
Casagranda,
Yes.
Demas,
Yes.
McClure,
Yes.
Mayor Terry.
Yes.
The agenda and consent agenda have been approved. You can give me 1 minute, I'll tell you what's left on consent. So on the consent agenda, we have 2021-047, authorizing the participation in a proposed refinancing by the Alaska Municipal Bond Bank of its general obligation bonds that provided funds to purchase the general obligation library museum bonds 2011 Series A of the City of Seward under a loan agreement between the City of Seward and the Alaska Municipal Bond Bank, and authorizing the city manager to approve a revised schedule of principal and interest payments on the City of Seward's 2011 A bonds in accordance with the loan agreement, if the bond bank successfully refinances its bonds. Resolution 2021-049, authorizing the city manager to purchase a portable restroom skid unit for Williams Park from Portable Restroom Trailers LLC in the amount of $89,775 and appropriating funds. And resolution 2021-055,
052.
052, authorizing the city manager to sign the cooperative agreement between the City of Seward Fire Department and Kenai Peninsula Borough for Eastern Peninsula Highway Emergency Service Area, and resolution 2021-055, amending the Port and Harbor Tariff Regulations to increase vessel storage rates in the Seward Marine Industrial Center yard as of January 1st, 2022. Approval of the April 12th, 2021 City Council regular meeting minutes. Non-objection to the renewal of the liquor license for Tony's Bar. Beverage dispensary number 1153. Non-objection to the renewal of the liquor license for Tony's Liquor Store, Package Store number 1154. And non-objection to the renewal of the liquor license for Oak and Keg number 2728, Package Store number 4334.
Great, thank you very much. Next on the agenda is special orders, presentations, and reports. First proclamation is recognizing the retirement of Melody Moline. So you just have to stand there while we brag on you for a minute. So whereas Melody Moline joined the City of Seward on September 9th, 1999, serving in the Finance Department for many years, and whereas in September 2008, Melody transferred to the Harbor Department and her experience in finance quickly became a valued asset, and whereas Melody has seen the Harbor Department through many challenges and improvements over the years, whereas Melody implemented 2 software changes and effectively worked through all the issues that arose during those transitions, whereas Melody solved numerous issues throughout the installation of the new electronic program for the B&C float pedestals, whereas her keen eye and vast experiences helped facilitate many tariff changes and improvements as the harbor has grown over the years, and whereas without her attention to detail and consciousness, the harbor would not have handled so many changes and growing pains so proficiently, and whereas with Melody's compassion and professionalism, she has handled disgruntled customers with respect, and whereas she was instrumental in the success of the 2018 AAHPA conference, and whereas Melody has always been a team player, is a respected colleague, and will be sorely missed by everyone at the city. Now therefore I, Christy Terry, Mayor of the City of Seward, Alaska, do hereby thank Melody Moline for her many years of service and her numerous contributions to the City of Seward and wish her all the best in retirement. Before we get to say a few words, so here's your proclamation, and then I don't know if Norm wants to.
Go ahead.
Well, this gold pan is for you, and for the folks at home and in the audience, it says City of Seward, Alaska, presented to Melody Moline for your dedicated years of employment, September 9th, 1999 to April 30th, 2021.
Wow.
And I just want to say, all my years as a city employee, all my years as a citizen, you know, we worked together on that harbor conference. I just want to say what a fantastic, amazing city employee you've been all these years, and you're just well respected, well appreciated, and we thank you for everything that you've done. And now you say a few words.
Well, time could not have gone so slow and so fast all at the same time. A lot of friends, a lot of professionals that I worked with over the years, and they will be missed.
No.
Thank you. So I am going to sit down and read this one because it's for the municipal clerks, and then we'll give it to Jessica after. So whereas the Office of Professional Municipal Clerk is a time-honored and vital part of the local governments throughout the world, and whereas the Office of Professional Municipal Clerk is the oldest profession among public servants, and whereas the Office of Professional Municipal Clerk provides the professional link between citizens, local governing bodies, and agencies of government at all other levels, whereas the professional municipal clerks have pledged to be ever mindful of their neutrality and impartiality, rendering equal service to all, and whereas the professional municipal clerk serves as the information center on the functions of local government and community, whereas professional municipal clerks continually strive to improve the administration of affairs of their office through participation in educational programs, seminars, workshops, and the annual meetings of their state and international professional organizations. Whereas, it is most appropriate that we recognize the accomplishments of the office of the professional municipal clerk and the role they serve in the community. Now therefore I, Christy Terry, Mayor of the City of Seward, do hereby proclaim the week of May 2nd through 8th as the 52nd Annual Professional Municipal Clerks Week, and extend appreciation to our professional municipal clerks for all the vital services performed and the exemplary dedication to the communities they represent. Thank you. Next is Wildflower Community Preparedness Proclamation. Welcome. Thank you so much for coming.
Glad to be here.
So whereas every year devastating wildfires burn across the United States and threaten the lives and homes, whereas Seward is located in the wildland-urban interface surrounded by thousands of acres of heavily forested lands that are high risk to wildlife, and whereas the National Fire Protection Association has proclaimed Saturday, May 1 as the Wildflower Community Preparedness Day, whereas Wildflower Community Preparedness Day is a national campaign that encourages people and organizations everywhere to come together to take action, to raise awareness, and to reduce wildfire risks. Whereas every citizen in our community has the duty and a responsibility to ensure that their home and properties are protected against wildflowers. Whereas every home and business should take these basic steps. 1, clear your lawn of debris, maintain landscaping, reduce combustibles on rooftops and gutters, such as leaves and needles, to defend your home and business ignition zone. Whereas studies show that measures taken at home within the area of 100 feet of it, known as the Home Ignition Zone, HIZ, have a significant impact on minimizing damage and loss. Something as simple as cleaning an immediate 5-foot zone around the home can assist in making a huge difference in avoiding a catastrophe. Whereas learn more about how to protect your home and property at www.firewise.org. Now I, therefore, Christy Terry, Mayor of the City of Seward, do hereby proclaim May 1 as Wildflower Community Preparedness Day in Seward and encourage all citizens to take time to evaluate their own properties and mitigate any threat of wildlife. And so folks at home, look up this proclamation in your packet. There's a great graphic that shows what you need to prepare your home for. So with that, I will hand you this and let you say a few words.
Thank you. I really appreciate Mayor and council members of bringing this awareness to us. As the community members, and awareness is great. A lot of these things, just like you mentioned, can be simple landscaping, but if anyone has any questions, feel free to stop by the station, give us a call. We're really happy to do site visits. We can come out and give you guidance in your homes or wherever needed. So thank you very much for bringing this awareness.
Next is Historic Preservation Month proclamation. Welcome, Cheryl. We have 2 Cheryl Ceases in the house.
I'm number 2.
No, I think you're both number 1s. So, Seward Historic Preservation Commission, whereas Historic Preservation is an effective tool for managing growth and sustainable development, revitalizing neighborhoods, fostering local pride, and maintaining community character while enhancing livability. And whereas historic preservation is relevant for communities across the nation, both urban and rural, and for Americans of all ages, all walks of life, and all ethnic backgrounds. And whereas it is important to celebrate the role of history in our lives and the contribution made by the dedicated individuals in helping to preserve the tangible aspects of the heritage that have shaped us as people. Whereas over the course of the past year, Seward Historic Preservation Commission has initiated and contributed to the local historic preservation activities and projects, such as the Certified Local Government Grant, 2005 Public Education Signage, which promotes local historic properties through educational signage and historic walking tour. Now therefore I, Christy Terry, Mayor of the City of Seward, do hereby proclaim May 2021 as National Historic Preservation Month, and do call upon the people of Seward to join their fellow citizens across the United States in recognizing and participating in this special observance. Thank you. Cheryl, would you like to say a few words?
Thank you. It's an honor to live in a community that values its history enough to invest in it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Next on the agenda is the city manager's report, and council will find that starting on page 10 of their packets. And I'll turn it over to Ms. Rushin.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Since the last meeting, we have 4 POs that went out over over $5,000. One is for the library for $7,590. It's an annual building automatic mechanical system scheduled service agreement. And then from Public Works, lift station number 4 grinder pump replacement for $9,622. From the fire department, maintenance on the fire vessel John Foster for $29,500. And from Public Works, replace the flatbed deck on vehicle 115 for $8,250. And I'd also like to read a couple of scoring criteria. One is for the forensic audit services. For depth of market experience, 20 points. Past performance, 10 points. Timeline for completion, 20 points. Understanding the work to be performed, 10 points. And then proposed costs, 40 points. And then the scoring criteria for the Seward Animal Shelter design build request. The price, 50%. Technical, 15%. Qualifications, 15%. Schedule, 5%. Project management, 15%. And take any questions.
Councilman Pasquale?
How does the scoring criteria that you just read for the forensic audit vary from the previous one that we
The
had?
proposed cost was changed from 30% to 40%.
So what went down, what was the what adjusted that?
What changed was understanding the work to be performed, which went from 20 to 10.
Was that in our packet? I didn't see it.
No, so this is criteria we have to read to council when it comes up.
Okay,
We'd get your copy of it if you like.
I would like one, thank you.
And
Councilman?
So just procedurally, if that's read and nobody says anything, then we're agreeing to it and it just keeps on keeping on. Is that,
I've never seen a scoring criteria change, but I guess we could change something if you all wish.
Has
okay.
it gone out?
It's gone out, we just haven't scored it yet, so we're gonna be scoring it on Wednesday. So if you wanna change the scoring criteria, now would be the time to do it as a body.
So you would have to send out an addendum? Or
No,
what-
no, the scoring criteria is, they don't know nothing about the scoring criteria, this is for our benefit, to score the
Oh, no,
the
no, no, in
RFPs.
the RFP, usually in proposals, you outline the scoring criteria for the proposal.
Not listed in our.
It's not listed in this RFP, no, not the last ones I've seen.
Are you sure?
I haven't seen it, sorry, Madam Mayor.
You're nodding your head, yes, it's not listed?
Correct.
Yeah,
Huh, usually in proposals, the scoring criteria gets listed.
currently it's not listed, so if you wanna make a change, we can make a change.
Councilmember?
I'd just like to see it keep on moving. I think that the price is important, but I think the understanding and knowledge of what they're bidding on is important too. So I think I'd like to see that stay
Go back to the way it was,
2030.
we just get direction, we'll take care of that, Madam Mayor.
Does anyone have any objections?
I don't really have an objection, I just want to know why it was, what the difference was. How do we come up with a different, that's all I'd want to know.
The change was made primarily because the first time that the RFP was submitted, we received one bid, and the glaring takeaway from that when this body talked about it was out of the 4 phases that were listed in the one bid proposal, price was incomplete. And so I think the intention was to reiterate the fact that clarity on pricing was of high importance. And that, by the way, that was communicated back to that one bidder. We would love to see a follow-up bid from them, but we needed the phase 3 out of 4 to be clarified with regard to rate.
Councilmember?
How many bids have been received thus far?
We won't know because we're going to open the envelope on Wednesday afternoon.
Oh, so you don't know how
We
many
don't-
bids are
We haven't
ins-
opened.
We don't know, it goes up directly to the clerk's office.
Oh, gotcha.
You know, I just might make a comment that proposals that I've seen include the scoring criteria because that's how the contractors answer the proposal, so maybe just double check on it.
Okay.
Any other questions on the city manager's report? Councilmember?
I don't know if this is so much on their report, and Madam Mayor, again, you can correct me.
Or do you have any questions for the administration?
I'm just trying to figure, yes, my question to administration, which I asked them earlier today, what is the quickest, most resulting way to move Public Works and decide on that piece of land?
So I know that, which I'll let you speak, but I know that that's part of what you're working on with that CIP. So maybe you can speak to that?
Yeah, so later on this evening, we'll be hopefully scheduling a work session on May 24th to talk about the capital improvement plan. So we've put together a survey that'll be going at the council that we talked about earlier this afternoon to evaluate council's amenability to move forward with certain items on the capital improvement plan list. So what we've done is put together a list that allows you to rank as council members your priorities for general fund and each of the enterprise funds. And then there's also the option to add items or make comments, etc. From that survey data, we will then provide that to you on the evening of the 24th as we talk about the capital improvement plan project. And so that would be the time as a group to look at where you're at as a body. And then, like we talked about, if council would like administration to move forward with some sort of public and business survey work or some sort of listening sessions so that we can obtain feedback on the desire to move forward with certain projects, whether that's the public workshop or other items. But the
intention of that is for you as a body to be able to have some concrete data that you can make decisions on which items you want to move forward on.
And I think that that is one of the items on the list for council to start ranking.
Correct.
Any other comments or questions to administration?
Just to follow up, so once we have the survey and then the work session, from that work session, then we will, as a body, we can't give direction in a work session, so I'm just curious, where do we give direction to move Public Works?
So, and I can, at the work session, what I just heard was, so we're gonna talk about our rankings, and if we wanna go out to public to get that information, like if we wanna do some public workshops and have them, have the public an opportunity to say, we want a swimming pool is number one, moving Public Works is number two, or vice versa, and then how we're gonna move forward on those projects. So I guess.
I'm sorry,
I understand your question, but I guess I think that administration wants to make sure that that is the number one, and we go gangbusters. Or is there something else that everyone should be putting our energy towards first?
Okay, so after we get gangbusters and we get the public involved and we say what our number one or our number two is, at what point, what happens? Because even there, we wouldn't give administration direction to,
Well, they'd have to bring us something back at a regular meeting.
based on the results of those, but we wouldn't give them direction to do that, so.
Well, I'm guessing from our input in the public, they would bring back what they think.
We can bring back an agenda statement as a discussion item, so we can get clarity what council wants us to move forward on whatever project. Whatever we decide is number one, or the citizens and the council decides what's number one. If we can bring something back stating, like in a agenda statement, with what we can do, how we're gonna fund it, things like that. Then we'll
Okay.
come back, and then it'll be discussion items, then we'll get further direction from council.
So, with that said, if we could have a timeline as to, I mean, because this is construction season, so are we looking at, next year doing something, or when can we break ground on whatever it is that we decide to do with a capital improvement? At that work session, if administration could bring us a timeline of, we're gonna do this, and then we're gonna do this, and then we're gonna do this, and then this is when we could probably make something happen.
Let's work that as part of the survey, it sounds like. I mean, I guess my thing is why are we talking about making plans when we don't know what we're moving
Right.
forward with?
I guess, so for me personally, I've seen the Public Works Department be on our priority list since 2008. So I don't know why we're even having a discussion what's our priority, because it seems like it should be at the top by now, but we can still have the discussion. I'm just wondering for how many more years we're gonna talk about it.
This is, I think, outside of the scope of what we're doing, but I will just say that it seems like there's, Okay, I just am, I think we just need to make sure we have community buy-in, because there's a lot of things connected to moving the public workshop. And there might be other important things that the community has decided is more important.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I'm curious of a timeline, that's all. I just wanna see whatever we decide, what that would look like, as far as policy-wise, like, work session, public outreach, agenda statement, discussion, resolution, all that.
Well, I don't think it's realistic to come up with a timeline, because that might not be our first priority. I mean, not everybody might, possibly not everyone would agree that moving the public works is our number one priority. So it's unreasonable to ask administration to come up with a timeline for it when we haven't even decided that that's what we're going to move forward with.
Why don't we hold this discussion
And this
until we
is-
get to
yes.
that item on the agenda?
Okay.
Thank you.
Any other comments on the city manager's report? Or questions to administration? Yes?
I know there's just been a few questions about the DMV and what are the plans and how long do we think it will take to get someone trained to be open again?
So I could touch on it a little bit. I know that they had hired one person in the police department, will be a part-time up there. As soon as the state schedules the classes, she'll be scheduled for the classes in Anchorage. And I know that the chief was still asking, he's still reaching out to different DMVs if we can get somebody here to help. Right now, there's nobody, but we are reaching out. Until we hire full-time, it's all about the classes to get certified. When the state has them, then we'll send them to them. So,
Thank you.
that pretty much it, chief?
Is there online info, can we make sure that the online information is on the city website and posted on the door that can direct people? Because I know there's quite a bit that can be done online. And maybe addresses for Sterling DMV or next closest DMV.
Absolutely, thank you, ma'am.
Yeah. Any other questions? Yes?
I have a quick question about, I guess there's been some community discussion about dog waste in town. And some people have said that there are some of the plastic bag stations that are not there anymore. And I don't know what one specifically, aside from one at the park where the $1 million bathrooms are.
We'll check on, we'll check on the bags. We'll
Thank
find
you.
out.
There was one more thing about the dog waste. I see that the kids were out picking up litter, but downtown there was 2 piles of dog poop and they didn't stop to pick that up, but to clean the rest of the street up.
What kids? Do you know what kids?
Well, they were downtown the other day.
I don't, do
We
we
don't
have
have-
Alpine
we
High?
don't have Alpine. I don't know who-
maybe
Well,
it
I don't
was-
know who was cleaning up, but they were carrying bags. There was one
People are
adult.
just voluntarily.
Yeah.
Maybe there's volunteers?
Better call the schools and get after those kids.
I don't know. All I know is they had bags. Okay, I'll call the school.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
Anything else? Next on the agenda is the chamber report, and that starts on page 23.
Where should I stand to give it?
I think, I think you can sit right there and we can hear you
You
okay.
hear me okay?
Yeah.
All right. All right, so you guys have my report. I just did want to add a couple of kind of highlights, or add some specificity to a few items. So this last weekend, we had a fantastic Chamber of Commerce Community Awards event on Saturday at the Mermaid Grotto. It was kind of a hybrid event. We had, it was Facebook Live, and then we did have some of the nominees, and obviously the winners there in person. And so just wanted to announce the winners there, but the Business Site Improvement Award went to El Zernia for the work at the Mermaid Grotto and Cafe. The Business Person of the Year was your very own Christy Terry. So, Service to the Community Award was Lori Landstrom, just for her work during the pandemic. And then the Board of Directors Award was to the Seward Community Health Center for their efforts during the pandemic. And the next thing is that on May 11th, the new chamber website is going live, and we're really excited about it. It's been kind of a heavy lift that's been going on in the background. And so we're just encouraging member businesses to watch the trainings on how they can update their listings on the site, because you can do that beforehand, and that way when it comes live, it'll be there. But it's really great. We have a visitor face, that's me, kind of our front face, but then kind of what we're also very excited about, because this is new that we've never had before, is we have a hometown face for kind of our hometown locals focus page for things that they can find, the resources there, because those resources just don't fit very well in the visitor faces. We have a marine page, which is really great, because our marine industry is really strong here, and that's kind of an undercurrent of what we do. And then we also have a conference and wedding destination page as well, so we want to make sure we're generating year-round business that way. So we're really excited about that. And then right now, we're full steam ahead on working for summer planning. So just for not only our own events, but also helping with events that other people plan, but we like to support those really well. So we have the Mermaid Festival coming up on the weekend of May 15th. The Combat Fishing Tournament is on May 26th. The Halibut Tournament will be June 15th to the 30th. The 4th of July weekend festivities are July 2nd through 5th. Mount Marathon is July 7th. The Salmon Derby is August 14th to the 22nd. And we're working with SMAF to kind of help them redesign the Seward Music and Arts Festival, that group to kind of do something new and a little bit different so they can hold it, and that's going to be on September 24th and 25th. So yeah, it's full steam ahead for a summer of busy activities that we hope will bring a lot of people here. And then just one last thing, that we've been picking up a lot of feedback from businesses that there's a shortage in workers, shortage of housing for workers, having issues with J1s. And so we're going to be hosting a call in the coming weeks here, just so we can kind of hear how that really affects our community, hear from businesses, and see if we can, if we're fully aware of the problem, then that means we can try and help find partial solutions, or some solutions are going in that direction. And so be looking for that, we'll have a Zoom call on that. So be looking for that coming here soon.
Great, thank you. Any questions from the chamber? Councilmember Cease?
Okay, was I correct in reading that the race isn't going to be on the floor?
Yes.
And can I ask why?
It's mitigation plans, so they can hold it safely. So what happens is that the race committee and race director, their job is to hold the race safely. And we wanted, the 4th of July thing is so we can kind of generate as much business as possible. Sometimes those come into contention. And in planning, they felt that if when they had to make a call pretty early on, and they want to make sure that they can hold the race. And so by having it on the 4th, they felt that if something were to come up that is unforeseen, then that puts a target on the back of the race.
Is this something you plan on doing every year?
No, just this year. No, next year we'll be back to normal. No one likes it for sure. So.
Okay, what date is it then?
The July 7th.
7th. Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions for the chamber, Doctor? Great. Next on the agenda is a presentation by the Alaska Redistricting Board by Peter Torkelson. Is he in person? How's
He's
that?
not. It's going to be, he's going to be telephonic, and it's going to be on the TV.
Okay. And that, for folks watching at home and in council chat, starts on page 26, if you wanted to follow along that way.
Please dial the authorization.
Hi, Peter.
Hi,
This is
Peter.
This is Jessica with the City Council, and we are ready for your presentation.
Okay, I'm watching the YouTube live, so I think I can see the screen. I hope I can. Good evening, Madam Mayor and council members, and thank you for the opportunity to discuss redistricting with you. And it's about time to do this project again. Go ahead and go to slide 2 for me. You can see that. So briefly, the Alaska voters, going back on Alaska's redistricting process, Alaska voters approved a ballot measure in 1998 to create a 5-member independent redistricting board. The governor appoints 2 members, and the president appointed 1, and the House Speaker appointed 1, as well as the Chief Justice. Members must represent different geographies of the state, must be Alaska residents, and they cannot run for legislative office in the next redistricting cycle. And the board holds sole authority for drawing new legislative districts and for defending them in the court system, if necessary. And moving on to slide 3, our current members are John Binkley of Fairbanks, Melanie Banky of Nome, Nicole Borromeo of Anchorage, Bethany Markham of Wasilla, and Bud Simpson of Juneau. They met and convened for the first time in August of 2020, and so far all of our meetings have been virtual for the COVID situation. population, although we certainly hope to meet in person as soon as we can. Slide 4.
Okay.
Are you able, I can't see on the screen, are you on slide 4?
Yes, I am.
Okay, thanks. So this is a current statewide district map of districts, and redistricting is a complicated process, and lawyers are involved, and there's always some debate about the best way to do it. So why go to all the trouble, right? So slide 5. The reason is because Alaskans move around, and the U.S. and Alaska constitutions require that one person, one vote, essentially the simplest way to think about it. And the district lines are now 10 years old. We know that people have moved, and so the district lines have to move to make it as close as possible so that everyone's vote has the same amount of power when it comes to selecting who represents each one of us in Juneau. So slide 6. As I'm sure you know, Alaska has a lot of churn. A lot of people move in, a lot of people move out. Historically, it's about 6% of the population per year. And when I first heard that, I thought that had to be wrong, because I mean, in 3 years, it's almost 20%. But that's been the historical norm for decades. About 40,000 people move in, about 40,000 people move out. Now that's changed, as you'll see in the next few slides, that in just the last few years, we've had a net out-migration, and our really only population growth has been in new births. Some areas, of course, churn more than others. For example, in Bethel, 88% of Alaskans there were born in the Bethel census area were born in Alaska, whereas in Aleutians it's only 17%. As we know, Alaska tends to be countercyclical. We lose people when the economy out south is strong, and we gain when our economy is stronger. Slide 7. This is Alaska's total population over time since World War II. And as you can see here at the end, in 15 through 19, we've had a plateau, actually like 13 to 19. I'm going to go to slide 8 for me. Here you can see net in-migration and net out-migration. You can clearly see that we had big booms with people moving in for the pipeline, the oil boom, and then busts when those were complete. You can see during the U.S. recession in 8, 9, 10 that we gained people because our economy was doing okay. And then the last 6 or 8 years, we've had net out-migration. That's been a persistent trend. Slide 9. This shows the population growth of Alaska over the last several decades, and you'll see that even 1950 to 1960, we had almost 100,000 people moving to Alaska, and then on through all the way even to 2000, 2010, we had 85,000 people move in, but from 10 to 20, that growth has collapsed, and we're looking at about 15 to 18,000 new people. Slide 9 just highlights that we've seen what appears, at least for now, a sea change in Alaska's population as growth has just flattened out. So slide 11, everyone wants to know, when are you going to get started? And we just don't know. The messages from Census keep changing. In February 12th, they told us it was going to be September. And now we're hearing that it's going to be potentially in August. We'll get to that in more detail. Slide 12. Why it matters when the census gives us the data is because Alaska's Constitution gives us a 30-day and 90-day timelines based on the official reporting of the census data is the trigger. So some states say you got to have your lines drawn by September 1st. Thankfully, Alaska's Constitution says 30 days after reporting. We have preliminary plans, and 90 days after reporting, we have our final adopted plan. So that day when census reports is a big deal for us. I'll go ahead and go to slide 13. This is a normal cycle like last time. They got the data March 15th. We would be drawing plans right now and adopting a final plan in June. Slide 14. When that will actually happen, we don't know. In fact, we just heard as of April 15th, they now say they're going to have us data sometime in August. There's a long litany of back and forth. We get emails from them, and they're all posted on our website if you want to read it. But basically, the census is being sued, and they keep changing their story as the courts and lawsuits come and the pressure builds. So how that's going to play out just remains to be seen. Slide 15. If, for example, we get the data, just say August 24th as an example, that means we would have a draft plan in September 23rd-ish, and then the final plan would be due just before Thanksgiving. And slide 16, September 30th is still sort of the official date, and if that were the case, we would have our final plans would have to be adopted really by at Christmas time, which is something that we hope to avoid, but census is really in charge. The most important thing, though, slide 17, is this COVID delay pinches the window that we have for litigation. So every plan has been sued. There's been lawsuits brought against every last redistricting plan since anyone can remember. And instead of having perhaps a year for those to work through the courts, it could be only 4 months. And the board, we're aware of this problem. This could leave someone who wants to run for office uncertain of maybe what district they would be in or who they're running against. We're keenly aware of that, but we don't have the flexibility to change any of the deadlines. So we're aware of that, and we'll do the best we can. Slide 18. This is a timeline of how, once the data is received, ways that the public can be engaged in different events. Slide 19, this just zooms into the first 30 days. We have a 30-day time to adopt what the Constitution says proposed plans. That last time they adopted 3 proposed plans and then took those around the state. So there will be opportunity for public testimony at that initial phase. And then next slide, please, slide 20. Once the proposed plans are adopted, then there's a 60-day, we call it a roadshow colloquially. Basically, we go out to as many communities as we logistically can manage and show the maps, take comment, hear from folks about what their concerns are with various map options. And then we bring all that back and before the board then has another week or two to zero in on one final selected map. Slide 21. The 2020 cycle is really different than every cycle that's come before. We have less growth, of course, but also virtual meetings and a compressed cycle. So uncertainty is really the norm. I highlighted this box. We did just get announced today, the census told us what our statewide population is. So 733,391. I learned that number today at 11:15 and was able to inform our board that our district target for this coming cycle will be 18,355 persons per district. And of course, you intuitively know that very few Alaska communities have exactly that number of people. And so boundaries, of course, will have to encompass and grow and change to try and make every district have the same number of folks. Slide 22. We launched the website a few months ago, and there's a lot of data on there, including all of the existing maps. Slide 23. There are several ways that you can get involved. I would encourage anyone who's interested to sign up. Slide 24. For essentially an e-news report, I emailed out folks today when we got the census numbers, just a quick email, hey, we just got the number, here it is. So if you're interested and want to stay informed about meetings and events, you can sign up for this and you'll be on our email list and kept apprised of developments. Slide 25. We do have, as I mentioned, all the maps are available and you can peruse them, download them as PDF files. Slide 26. There's a little pop-out drawer, slide 27, where you can get into details about our minutes, and audio, our agendas, and so forth. Laws that apply to us, information about the census, and you can request a meeting if you'd like to meet with staff or the board. So slide 28, thank you very much. Appreciate the opportunity. I wish I could have been there in person, but it didn't work out this time. Please let me know if you have any questions. I'll be happy to answer anything council members may have questions about.
Great, thank you. Hold on the phone for just 1 second. Does anyone have any questions off the presentation? Great, thank you so much. We appreciate you taking time and keeping us updated on the process.
Okay, well, thank you very much for your time.
Next on the agenda is the watch the winning video from the Japanese consulate's contest. So maybe Jessica, do you have any narrative about this or how this came about? I know there's an agenda statement in the packet.
I don't. I know it was, I believe, the 2019 student exchange group that ended up submitting the video.
And they were the winning video.
Yes.
Oh yeah, nice.
With the link to play it on, but for some reason the computer's not doing it. If you want to move on.
Do we want to keep going and then come back?
Yes.
Okay, sounds good. Next on the agenda, let me write myself a note. Next on the agenda, we have no public hearings. We do have unfinished business item resolution 2021-043, and that's amending the 2021 budget to reflect the mid-cycle budget adjustments and appropriating funds. That is already on we already have a motion and a second that brought this resolution to us. And in the packet is a substitute resolution. So I'll just throw it out there and make a motion to adopt the substitute resolution. And I'll look for a second.
I'll second.
Okay, so before we vote on that, so then what that does is, instead of discussing the resolution and the numbers that was in the meeting from last time, what we have before us is the substitute resolution with the proposed numbers, and that's on page 34 of your packet. And so that's what administration is bringing forward to us. So first, based on that motion, I'll let administration go ahead and make a presentation.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. So at the last meeting, there was some questions about using 2019 numbers. We brought it, finance went back and put in the 2019 numbers for what was requested, and this is the substitute resolution back to council with those new numbers. And Sam is here to talk about any, if you have some questions for her.
So instead of maybe waiting for questions, why don't you go ahead and just outline specifically what the changes were?
So we only made 2 changes, and actually there's a laydown that got sent out after the fact that has Schedule A, which is what I'm looking at right now. So the one that's in the packet was the original. So based on feedback from the chamber and what we hear in the public, we kept the bed tax at the 2021 budget, which was $673,000. And then all we did was take the sales tax at a 25% reduction over the 2019 actual. So with those only 2 changes, we're down to use of fund balance of $68,382. Everything else is the same.
So just to clarify, with those revenue adjustments, instead of using $752,399 of the fund balance in the budget as proposed, the impact to the fund balance would be $68,382. And no other changes were made.
No other changes.
Councilmember Cascarandi.
So the laydown that I see is not a resolution, it's an agenda statement. And so I think,
The resolution is on page 34 of the packet.
okay,
And then
so,
that's the agenda statement that matches the resolution on page 34.
so the resolution in page 34, I show an increase. Revenues are adjusted for a net increase of 53,873 per the laydown. Not 630,144. So where do you see the 630?
So I'm waiting for administration to answer that.
So Madam Mayor, so if you take the net increase and subtract the net, the mayor's expenditures and adjust for net increase of the 122, it comes out to 68,382,
Here.
which is, it's up
So
there.
what happened was the resolution got replaced, the agenda statement and attachments did not. So that's what the laydown was replacing those other three.
So here's the question that is being asked. So on page 34
Yep.
is the substitute resolution.
Correct,
So that should match the agenda statement and the information provided in the laydown.
correct.
So can you explain section 1 and how it matches up to this schedule A of the laydown?
Thank
So
you.
revenues are adjusted for net increase of 53,873. And on the schedule A of the laydown in the top half, net increase in revenues 53,873. Various expenditure changes, net increase of 122,255, about halfway down. Net increase in expenditures 122,250.
Madam Mayor, if I may, I'd like to make a motion to strike in section 1, number 1, revenues are adjusted for a net increase of $53,873.
A second.
Okay, so Sam, what we need you to do is, here's the disconnect that's happening, because here's what we're seeing and what's in here. So on what you provided, so the sales tax number is $1,345,983, which is then said that sales tax is a 25% reduction over 2019 actuals. How is that reflected in this resolution? I understand
Because
in the
it's taking-
resolution,
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
taking the net increase and the decrease of 53,873, because we're increasing revenues, we're camping and grants, and decreasing the sales tax. So the net change is 53,873, it's just a summary.
So you've got camping, can I interject? Sam?
Absolutely.
Okay, so you've got a projected $820,000 increase due to camping fees. You've got an increase due to grant revenue from SALT, which is COVID-related federal grant money, $579,856. So that total combined is $1,399,856, okay? So drop directly down from there, so that's an estimated $1,399,856 in revenue increase, okay? We're gonna see a projected decrease, if you slide over to the right-hand side, due to a decrease in sales tax of $1,345,983. So if you combine those two, the increases and the decreases, we're gonna experience a $53,873 estimated net increase in revenues. Sam, is that?
Yes.
So that's reflected in section 1, item 1.
So
It's
where
not
that-
though.
I see that.
where it differs from our previous resolution is the previous resolution had revenues are adjusted for a net decrease of 630,000. Where in this new resolution, it has revenues are adjusted for a net increase of 53,000. So that's the delta.
Okay, I'm sorry. My mistake.
Okay, no, it's not a mistake. I think we all needed to hear it clarified. That's not a
Okay.
mistake. So, but we do have a motion and a second on the floor surrounding that 53,000, so we'll just back that out.
Right, because I made a motion to make the motion that's in the substitute, and I was not looking at the substitute, I was looking at the postponed.
Okay, thank you. Councilmember Osenga.
Looking at these numbers, I'm just kind of curious as to, So our sales tax number is a 25 reduction over 2019 actuals. So none of this is reflected in what we did in 2020.
Correct.
So 2019, we were still fairly normal. We were before pre-COVID, so these numbers are quite good, or quite normal for
Correct,
us.
minus the 25% decrease. Good for
Right,
us.
so there's a 25% decrease over 2019 numbers, which were including cruise ship passengers, tourists from out of state, people coming over Canada, that kind of thing.
I don't know how many cruise
Well,
ships
I'm
passengers stay in
just
those
saying it
hotels.
was a normal summer, it was pre-COVID.
Correct.
So 2020, we lost a certain amount of money in our sales tax revenue, like what, 1.6 or something like that. And so I'm concerned that with Canada being the way they are and with cruise ships not coming like they were, I'm just wondering why we have to go with such a optimistic number when it's not really, I mean, this isn't set in stone. I'm not arguing that this needs to be changed or anything. I'm just wondering why we have to be so optimistic here when we can just have the same, I mean, I don't see that we're gonna be a lot much greater than we were last year. And to me, it's almost better to be a little more conservative on our numbers, and to be able to have a surplus would be much better to deal with. I'm assuming that would come forward again if we were able to adjust.
Madam
Go ahead.
Mayor.
Yeah, let's let Mr.
So we come November when we have the sales tax revenue, we'll know more then, and then we can always come back before council if the numbers aren't there. Correct, Sam?
Yep.
We can come back in November when we get those numbers, bring it back before council. If we need a little bit more, we'll come back before you. If we're good, we'll let you all know.
Before I let you speak, does anyone have, which he just happens to be here, but does anyone mind if I just relax the rules and just get a comment from the chamber director? Would that help at all?
Yeah,
or-
go ahead,
Yeah. Did you want to talk about maybe what the forecast for this summer is looking like? Am I
Yeah.
putting you too much on the spot?
No,
Okay.
great. So we're kind of, obviously we have some markers that we can look at last year. Kind of things, cruise ships are not gonna be here. We have pent up traveler demand, so if we were to look at like the sector of just independent travelers, I think that we're looking at having probably kind of like almost a record for that like subsector of group of people, because they're showing up earlier. We have people showing up in March. I mean, you talk to people like Airbnb bookings are super high, those are all independent traveler based. We have excursions that are really, really high. And they're almost booking at record rates this year. That doesn't mean that they're gonna be like normal, like record overall summer. People are gonna be really full in those groups. So we kind of have that thing right there. So that group, independent travelers, are probably gonna see more than we were seeing before. Now that we have some travel regulations opening up, a lot of the people that were looking at that they could only travel here in the state last year can now travel out of the state. They can go to places like Hawaii, and they have been. And so that could cause a little bit of a decrease of our in-state like tourism that we saw last year. We do have a couple of factors that have come to our attention fairly recently. I think some people are calling it carpocalypse. Where what happened was last year car rental companies had to offload their fleets to keep their heads above water. But what happened is that in the supply chain issues, they produced GM, Ford, all the rental car companies, all the companies that produce rental cars, they produce all these cars except they don't have chips for them. So now we have like lots of tens of thousands of cars that are sitting there made except for chips. And so all those manufacturers are canceling their orders for rental cars. So the United States has very few rental cars, and cars are going for $700 a day in a lot of places. And so that's kind of one of those limiting factors that could inhibit some of that independent traveler pieces. Also too, like Alaska Airlines is not at 100% of the level that they were at in 2019. They're probably more in the range between like 70 and 80%, because they scaled back and they can't like roll everything back on like it was. And so all that to say, it's like you can look at some of those factors, you can look at all those factors. We don't have cruise ships. Also, like Canada's still probably closed to RVers. So I do think we're going to have a significantly better summer than we had last year. And but obviously 2019, that's not going to be this year. But I do think we're going to have a fairly strong summer. It's hard to put a number on it, I guess. But I think, like 70% of like 2019 would be like a kind of a, that's what we're could possibly be looking at, I guess, in my estimation around some of those things, based on the limitations.
Thanks, Jason. I'll go back on the record, or I'll go back on the rules. Councilmember, Vice Mayor Buckland, did you have a comment?
I think I know that we had the initial work session and all those things went through. I'd like to thank, actually, Councilmember Casagrande, I think was the one who postponed it. Because what we were doing here, and the cautious thing is, before we were gonna take $700,000 out of our reserves and put it into our funds. And now we are down to $68,000 going back into our funds, which in spending and those things, like the last time, and cautiously, you know, at the last budget process, at that time city manager had adjusted, we asked for solutions for the budget, and then the sales tax was adjusted, and then COVID happened. So we adjusted numbers, and then things happened, and then they also, you know, those things occurred. So I think I'm thankful for administration for bringing us back these numbers. I think that it's a little more conservative, and I think that we're on par, even looking at the numbers that were brought from finance in the packet, from the numbers from the past few years. It looks like we are on a good track so far. So thank you for your work on the numbers so far, and I think that this is much better adjustment than going into $700,000 from our reserves.
To Councilmember Osenga's point, if you need to use more out of the fund balance because the first 2 quarters don't come back, then you would come back to us to ask for additional funding.
Correct. It's all about the summer season. It comes, like I said, November will be a really good tell, but we'll have the second quarter coming up to kind of give us a good idea where we're at.
Councilmember Stevens.
I want to know why in the increase for expenditures, we have the city manager in for $155,329. We had to have something in our budget for them to start with.
So that's the city manager's account, but it was for the assistant city manager. It wasn't budgeted, because council added them the year before, added assistant city manager, wanted them back. We didn't have one before. So there was not one in the budget for this year for assistant city manager position.
Okay, thank you.
Councilmember Osenga, did you have something else?
I was just gonna point out that the $752 original plan that we had wasn't meaning that we were going to spend $752,000 from our general fund. It was just a projection. We could probably have done better. We could have had a better than projected year and not touched that at all. This to me is, I mean, for one thing, it says that the bed tax is gonna stick with the original 2021 budget, and I don't know, I didn't know what that number was. $350,000, I guess. And so, I'm just curious as to, we projected 2021 to be 350,000. How did we come to assume that that number is going to stick from when we did this original budget, I guess? But I mean, again, these aren't solid numbers. This isn't cement. I mean, I understand we can change this, and it will likely change, so. Yep, that's fine.
Okay, I think it's good discussion. I think we're all kind of curious how this year is going to turn out. So, any other comments before we call for the vote? Madam Clerk?
What are you voting on now? I'm sorry, what's the vote on?
So what we're voting right now on is the substitute resolution, but then once we vote on that, we'll have to go back to the original resolution. So if we vote yes on the substitute resolution, then we'll still have to vote yes on the resolution as a whole that will adopt the substitute.
Thank you.
So the first thing is the amendment to the substitute resolution. Thank you.
Yep. Voting on amending resolution 2021-043 with the substitute resolution. Osenga?
Yes.
Cease?
Yes.
McClure?
Yes.
Casagrande?
Yes.
Demas?
Yes.
Bachman?
Yes.
Mayor Terry?
Yes.
The amendment with the substitute resolution has been approved.
And now we're back to the main motion, resolution 2021-043, and that's with the amendment for the substitute resolution incorporated. Is there any further discussion on the resolution? Madam Clerk, call for the vote, please.
Right, so voting on resolution 2021-043 as a whole with the substitute resolution. Buckman,
Yes.
Osinga,
Yes.
Demas,
Yes.
McClure,
Yes.
Casagrande,
Yes.
Cease,
Yes.
Mayor Terry.
Yes.
Resolution 2021-043 has been amended with the substitute resolution.
Thank you. Next on the agenda is Resolution 2021-048. Madam Clerk, if you could read the title into the minutes, please.
Yes, and I will also make a note with this title. If you look at the title on the agenda versus the resolution, it's repeating itself on the agenda. That was just a typo. So Resolution 2021-048, authorizing the city manager to purchase a heavy-duty Volvo EC220EL crawler excavator, a large tilt deck trailer with the capacity for hauling the excavator and various digging and trenching attachments in the amount of $288,671 from Construction Machinery LLC.
Thank you, and I'm looking for a motion and a second.
I move to approve Resolution 2021-048.
I'll second it.
So if administration could provide explanation on this, please.
Madam Mayor, Rob's here to talk about it.
Yeah, thank you, Norm.
Take any questions.
It's really as simple as we really do need a large excavator in our fleet. Our existing equipment that we have is really too small. The equipment we're using, we're having to beat up severely, and with that comes repair cost. We also cannot get access into our right-of-ways with the current equipment. With a large excavator, we certainly will be able to complete projects more quickly and efficiently, and that will allow us to move on to other projects. We will also save on the wear and tear of the existing equipment, which is much too small, and we will also save on those associated repair costs. When it comes to power outages, we will be much more effective with a large excavator. We will actually be able to go in when we have trees that are on lines and have knocked down poles, and we'll be able to remove the trees. We'll be able to actually use the excavator to install the poles. The excavator will also give us access into our rights-of-way. Today, if there's an outage or something going on in our system, particularly on the transmission, we may not be able to get to it with our other vehicles. Having the excavator, we can find our way there. Another benefit of the excavator in this area is we can actually use it to create and build access points along our rights-of-way to the excavator to do some of the right-of-way maintenance work that we haven't been able to do in the past.
Okay, thank you. Councilmember Casagrande, you pulled it off the consent. Did you want to start with questions?
Yeah, I think my question is more for a finance question, because we just approved a mid-cycle budget to not take anything out of reserves. And it says in the fiscal note that this will basically be budgeted in the next budget cycle. So we're gonna spend the money now, but we're not gonna budget for it until next year, is that correct?
I know Sam was here and walked out. And this is not out of the reserves because it's not a general fund.
Right.
So it would come out of
The electric
motor
fund.
pool
Yeah,
It's coming from the electric fund into the motor pool because this isn't a piece of equipment that's in the motor pool. But I'm just curious, budget-wise, sorry.
So it'll go into the motor pool, and then, so once it's in the motor pool, they'll start also putting money back in to replace this unit in the long term. That's what the motor pool fund's for. But initially, it's gonna come out of the electric fund to pay for it. In the, you said it's in the agenda statement?
No, it's a fiscal note of
on
the,
page 56.
oh yeah, of the agenda statement, yep.
So it's coming out of the electric fund reserves.
Correct.
So you're going to move forward with purchasing that this year.
Correct. Yeah, the other part of this is that when you buy a piece of equipment this large, it's going to take us about 8 to 10 months before we get it back because it's a special order piece of equipment.
Oh.
Yeah, so it takes a long time.
So this says in here, will
So
be
we have-
increased in the next budget cycle to begin contributing to the future replacement of the equipment. So that's not specific to this.
Correct. And because he has to order it now, it won't be ready till 2022.
So Madam Mayor, if I can just ask for clarification of the room, since we don't have anybody from finance here, but basically we're going to take this money out of the electric fund reserves, and then it's going to make it a piece of the motor pool equipment. And so the electric fund is going to essentially be paying itself back. And so I heard Rob say that we would essentially pay for this in 7 years, but what is the expected life of this?
15 to 20.
Okay.
If we take care of it, we can easily get 20 out of it, hopefully more.
Okay. So I guess it's just mostly a budget question of, I guess you just pull money out of reserves and you don't have to have it in the budget.
Well, it's not in the general fund reserves.
Yeah.
Right,
It's in the electrical fund.
right.
Is that account called your reserves, or do you know what that account's called? It doesn't say
Is it?
reserves.
Or you
It's
may
like,
know more.
it's like the, it's the harbor reserves, it's like the electric fund reserves.
It's our savings account. Okay.
Any other questions?
No, I think, if Bob Valdetta was here, I saw him today, so it just made me think about, he always said that we should get the same type so that parts are easy to come and replace, and is Volvo the
So-
type that,
So Madam Mayor, so most of, all the equipment we're buying from CMI is Volvo equipment. So I'm not sure about the filters, I'm pretty sure they're close, but most of the stuff we're getting from Volvo, so.
are universal?
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
I don't know if they're universal. I
Oh.
mean, some are big equipment, big oil filter, but it's all the same company that we're dealing with. If that helps.
Are we ready to call for a vote? Madam Clerk?
Voting on resolution 2021-048, Cease,
Yes.
Casagrande,
Yes.
Demas,
Yes.
Osinga,
Yes.
Buckline,
Yes.
McClure,
Yes.
Mayor Terry.
Yes.
This resolution has been approved.
Thank you. Next on the agenda is resolution 2021-050. Madam Clerk, could you read the title into the minutes, please?
Resolution 2021-050, authorizing the city manager to purchase portable restroom trailers for the cruise ship terminal from Portable Restroom Trailers LLC in the amount of $311,805 and appropriating funds.
And before we get a motion in a second, I'm gonna pass over the gavel. I'm just gonna disclose, I work for the Alaska Railroad at the cruise ship terminal. These bathrooms will not be owned by the railroad. They could potentially be used, obviously, when there's cruise ships, that the intended use is to have them there. I do not see that causes a conflict of interest, because it doesn't have any financial benefit to myself.
I would say that there is no conflict of interest.
Does anyone object to that? Okay. Then, I'm looking for a motion and a second, please.
I move for the approval of resolution 2021-050.
I'll second it.
And that's on page 65. Administration, could you outline the item, please?
Yes, Madam Mayor. So, remember, last year we got some grant money from the state to use for mitigating COVID-19 at the cruise ship terminal. So, so this money can only be used at the terminal. We're working with the railroad, trying to figure out the cruise ship terminal to figure out what we can do to mitigate COVID-19. So we come up with some plans, but they were gonna tear down the bathrooms. If they tear down that building in the future, which is possibly gonna happen, there was no sense putting a whole bunch of money into these bathrooms to get them ready, because there's only like 3 stalls in one and 4 stalls in the other. So we come up with this to use these portable bathrooms for like this year, if we do get cruise ships, or next year to mitigate COVID-19. And then in the future, when they do build a new building, they'll have more restrooms and stuff. Well, these will belong to the city of Seward. If they don't need them anymore, then they can go to different areas. They can go to SMIC, they can go to a park, a different campsite, whatever, but they do belong to the city of Seward. Similar to the airclave units we bought for the railroad that hose down the inside of the terminal, same situation, belongs to the city of Seward.
And then, Councilmember Casagrande, did you have questions?
I actually was just looking for more information, and that's super helpful, so I appreciate that. I guess my next question would be, we had come before us the contract for the poop pumper outer.
Of the
Porta potties?
Porta potties.
Thank you. I mean, we're looking at like 6 new toilets here, and then the Williams Park is an additional.
So this will be separate, this will be, the cruise ship terminal will have to take care of the pumping fees.
So the pumping will not be a cost to the city of Seward,
Correct.
and the cruise ship terminal is okay and agrees to that?
Well, I'm not gonna speak to that, but I'll just say, you know, I know that administration and the railroad have been communicating about
Okay.
this.
Yeah.
Thank you.
So any other questions? Let's call for the vote, please.
Voting on resolution 2021-050, Cease,
Yes.
Bachwan,
Yes.
Casagrande,
Yes.
McClure,
Yes.
Demoss,
Yes.
Osinga,
Yes.
Mayor Terry.
Yes.
This resolution has been approved.
Thank you. Next on the agenda is resolution 2021-051. Madam Clerk, if you could read that into the minutes, please.
Resolution 2021-051, authorizing the city manager to purchase a new Volvo L110H wheel loader with bucket attachments and a Kodiak LMC SC 3640 snow blower from Construction Machinery Industrial LLC, CMI, to replace a 1996 Oshkosh snow blower for a total amount not to exceed $460,735, utilizing the Sourcewell RFP contract number 032119 VCE and appropriating funds.
And looking for a motion in a second.
I move for the approval of resolution 2021-051.
I'll second.
Thank you. And starting on page 79, if administration could outline this item, please.
Yes, Madam Mayor, Doug's here to talk on this subject.
Can I talk from here?
That's good.
Okay, good, just want to make sure you can hear. This snow blower we've had working quite a while, but the current one we have, we bought used from the state years and years ago. We've got past the useful life of it. It's a 96. Each year we have certain breakdowns that we have to deal with on that one. It's getting to be the expense of it and the reliability. When we need it, we're ending up out there in the loader instead of the snow blower to load up a lot of stuff because it's just not that reliable. What we looked at with the loader snow blower, the difference between that and the Oshkosh snow blowers, the loader snow blower allows us to use it in the summertime also. The snow blower will be an attachment that hooks on the front of the loader, similar to like the bucket, and it's got its own motor. That snow blower will then, if there's not snow in, like here toward the end of spring, we could detach the snow blower and use the bigger bucket to clear avalanche. During the summer, we'll be able to use it for any of the loader work we do in the summer. It's just really a good multi-use of equipment versus a new snow blower, the Oshkosh type. They're over $600,000 to replace that one that we have. I mean, they're very expensive to get, and they're a one unit. You can't use them in the summer really. So we've been working on this for years. It's been in the budget now a year and a half. Last year during the when the COVID was really coming on, talking to Scott, I was ready to order it and get things going with those prices we had, and it was just, everybody was kind of in that, what do we do with this COVID? And should we or shouldn't we? And so it was a decision made to hold off. And that's brought us around till now, and the problem was, by the time we budgeted it a couple of years ago for those budgets and all the way till now, the prices, boy, things have skyrocketed with this COVID and even beyond. So I don't think they're gonna get cheaper. It's a really good unit. We definitely necked this one down to the smallest we could get. I would like to have a bigger blower that goes on this loader. It's still a pretty good size, but we went with the kind of trying to stay within our pocketbook the best we could. And I'd take any questions if anybody has them.
Thank you. Councilmember Casagrande, did you have a question?
My question was again more so for finance, and since they're not here, I don't wanna.
So Madam Mayor, so it was budgeted for 2020, the funds just weren't used, so the funds are there, just a little bit more than what originally planned. There's money in the motor pool fund for this?
Okay, how much was the question?
Well, he had, was it 383?
The amount right now we had budgeted prior a couple of years ago was
Right.
340.
340, and so
And
now
now
it's,
we, as we got all the bids in, we checked, different kinds, we did happen to end up with the Volvo, which is consistent with what we have, but it was because it was the lowest price one. We did check, the other ones, the Caterpillars, the Case, the other one, trying to get something, and that was the best deal.
I know, Madam Mayor, that there's definitely over 1 million plus in that motor pool fund. If that was the question, was there enough money in there to cover this? Because it was budgeted partially, not fully, because the price went up in a year.
So the difference, sorry, Madam
Go
Mayor.
ahead.
The difference of approximately $120,000 isn't going to bump somebody else that had something to buy in the motor pool out of being able to replace?
I don't believe so, no, ma'am.
Okay, thank you.
So that was a good point that you made, that I think was part of the question also. So all these funds are coming out of the motor pool reserves, they're not coming out of the general.
Correct.
Right.
Or the, thank you. Any other questions or comments for administration? Madam Clerk, let's call for a vote, please.
Resolution 2021-051, Casagrande,
Yes.
McClure,
Yes.
Demas,
Yes.
Osenga,
Yes.
Blackmon,
Yes.
Cease,
Yes.
Mayor Terry.
Yes.
This resolution has been approved.
Next on the agenda is Resolution 2021-053. Madam Clerk, if you could read that into the minutes, please.
Okay, Resolution 2021-053, approving the renaming of Dairy Hill Lane to Chamberlain Road located north and west of the Seward Lagoon and the cliff addition to Seward Town Site.
If we could have a motion in a second.
I move for the approval of Resolution 2021-053.
I second it.
Thank you, and you'll find that on page 109. Administration, if you could describe the resolution, please, and I see.
Madam Mayor, Jackie's here to explain it for you.
I'm gonna come over here because we have the map and it's just easier for me to point to
Maybe
for
I'll
everyone.
stand over here. Is my chair in the way?
So in front of you, you have the resolution which was requested by the owner of this large parcel, which is known as Dairy Hill subdivision. This portion over here is Dairy Hill / Cliff Addition subdivision. But this is all owned by one individual, which requested the name change for Dairy Hill Lane. We follow through planning and zoning, we follow some different criterias. We do have it in our code, but we also follow the borough's code when it comes to renaming and addressing. Just so everyone knows, this is not really a legal lane because lanes need to run this direction. And roads have, and when they run this direction, they have the ability to be added onto. But a road has a start and an end. So when we renamed Chamberlain Road, it shouldn't have stopped right here. It should have went all the way around. Mr. Lear has requested to change his address to a Chamberlain address and has requested to change Dairy Hill Lane to Chamberlain Road, which would then take it in and connect down here to 2nd Avenue, right past the lagoon. It turns into 2nd Avenue. And we did multiple things. We called and talked to multiple owners of the areas. Wanted to make sure we weren't affecting anybody's address, and we are not. You know, we're affecting the one person that applied for it. That he has 100 Dairy Hill Lane, and then these are also Dairy Hill Lane, but they are his parcels, that large parcel. The only other name that would change would be this physical address, which is for your Benny Benson Park. Questions?
Councilmember McClure?
What is 212 Dairy Hill Lane?
It's just, well, this parcel here
is 100 Dairy Hill.
Right.
This whole entire parcel is 212.
Oh, okay, the whole horse
Yeah.
pasture and everything.
Yep, the whole horse pasture, and then the other side of it has a Phoenix address,
That's right.
but it's all one parcel.
Okay. There's no structure there, that's fine.
Are there any other questions for administration or comments on the resolution? Councilmember Demas.
So I pulled this resolution. I live in the Dairy Hill neighborhood, full disclosure, I won't benefit financially from this decision at all. I've had the opportunity to talk to a lot of people up there. I feel as though the folks that live on Chamberlain are aware of it and they support the change due to some delivery issues and whatnot. And then I feel that the majority of the folks that live in the Dairy Hill neighborhood up behind Chamberlain, to the west of Chamberlain, up the hill a little bit, feel very strongly that they do not want the Dairy Hill name to go away. So I think that it definitely is something that should be discussed at the very least. I personally would vote no on this.
Is there further council discussion? Councilmember?
Yeah, I was very concerned about this. I watched the planning and zoning meeting, and then I was one that called Jackie today to make sure that the people that live along the Chamberlain Road had been notified, because nobody had called in or, at the planning and zoning meeting, and they had, and I had no idea that Chamberlain went that far. I thought it was sort of at the group home, but I'm really torn about this. This is, usually I can come in with a pretty firm idea, but being a history person, it's been Dairy Hill forever. The Lears had the dairy. I mean, it's just, it will still be Dairy Hill in people's minds, but then I'm thinking back, well, there's Hagen's Hill too, and nobody knows what that is anymore because there's no name date. So you don't know what Hagen's Hill is, but it's the back road behind First Lake that was Hagen's Hill, and the Hagens lived there, and my mom used to play up there. I mean, there's all this history that might potentially go away if we do this, which seems to be simple, straightforward name change. So, I need to be convinced one way or another, and I just don't know about this.
Councilmember Cease?
Well, I would vote that we should not change it. If you live so far off the road, yeah, I think you should get a mailbox out on the road and put a sign up that's his address. That's a long time part, and I'm surprised that Mr. Lear wants to change it since it's his namesake from his family. But I feel that it should stay Dairy Hill.
I'm sorry, Vice Mayor McClung.
I'm torn as well because I think it's a hard decision to make for anyone. But then we always kind of revert back to the process of how it got to us and where these recommendations came from, which was approved by the Planning and Zoning Board. And I did speak to Mr. Lear, and it was a delivery problem for him. I don't know if I'm convinced either way. So.
Councilmember Osenga, did you have any comments?
So Steve brought this to the attention of planning and zoning, right? And so was there any other options thought of? I mean, like from Lane to Road or Dairy Hill Road or?
We did mention multiple changes with Mr. Lear. Mr. Lear is the one who said, change it to Chamberlain Road.
Right.
And we asked him why, and he answered us multiple times. One of the reasons was, everybody was like, why are we naming it Chamberlain? And his is, if you want to talk about history, Mr. Chamberlain provided a lot of the historic rose bushes and everything that are throughout our town. And that's how he came about it. He was like, I just think that it needs to be Chamberlain all the way down. And, we talked to him about different options. We talked to him about putting up a Dairy Hill Lane on his driveway, and he was like, he even said that he didn't even want to put a signage for the historical portion because he doesn't see it as being historical as everyone else sees it.
Demas.
I would just like to reiterate that it has been this way. This was decided in 1986, and nobody has had a problem with it since until now. In addition, I wanted to comment on planning and zoning's discussion and recommendation on it. It was really split. I listened to the meeting. There was a lot of discussion. There were some odd recommendations, and it was very split. And I do believe at that time that that some people, a lot of people actually that live in the neighborhood just didn't know about it yet, not at any fault of anyone's here, but.
Well, I just, you know, Harold Faust wrote in, and he's another old-time family. We've got a lot of old-time families here, you know, and the Lears are a very old-time family, and it's just, you know, I hate the idea in a way of preserving something historical against the wishes of the person who is the history that is being, but on the other hand, it is our history, and we've also had a member now of the Historical Preservation, just as a person, I believe, speaking against this too, and I think if they had weighed in, you know, they might have also been against it, so I think I'm almost convinced one way or the other. Talking my way, I'm like one of those assembly members that goes circularly around, but this is tough.
It's not an easy one.
If I can just answer, we keep referencing the 86 decision on name changes. But that 86 ordinance was to just try to get us into compliance with how 911 systems were starting to work. And there wasn't an absolute, we're changing this name to this and this is why. I mean, the same thing happened that's up in the Gateway subdivision. For the longest time, it was Gateway. And then off of Gateway in 86, it was like, yeah, that's Gateway Road, or that's a Phoenix Road. It was never, we're naming it because it has a historical background. It was never, we're naming it, the Chamberlain, yes, you guys changed the name of Chamberlain for historical purposes. But all the history doesn't have that history of why it's named Dairy Lane. I just want, that 86 is just overall renaming certain streets that didn't have a through street or an ability to go and be added on to.
I know we're probably not ready for a vote, but is there any further discussion? Are we ready for a vote?
Let's just vote.
Okay, yeah. Madam Clerk, if you could call for the vote, please.
Yep. Resolution 2021-053, Casa Grande.
Why me?
It rotates.
No.
Demas,
No.
Cease,
No.
Osinga,
Yes.
McClure,
No.
Bachlan,
Yes.
Mayor Terry.
Yes.
This resolution has failed.
Thank you. Next on the agenda is Resolution 2021-054. Madam Clerk?
Resolution 2021-054, recommending City Council approve the walkable mural application guidelines and administrative policy.
And a motion and a second, please.
I move for the approval of Resolution 2021-054.
I'll second it. I hope
And,
we're.
I'll turn over to administration to make presentation.
Yes, Madam Mayor, Jackie's here to talk on it. I know that Councilmember Singer pulled it for you if you had questions, or we could go from there, however you want to discuss it.
You know, I personally think it's helpful to give administration just a quick presentation time and then we'll go to council. Go ahead.
Okay, so this has been in the works for a little over a year now. It originally was brought forward in different wording and different needs. It was asked to go in front of planning and zoning to come up with an application, and within that time, we not only had work sessions, but community development looked into some different options. Walkable murals came to be light of what Seward is, but there's artistic crosswalks, different things that are through different cities. So we, didn't recreate the wheel, we just made it work for the Seward area by naming it walkable murals. worked a lot with Public Works on, you know, the guidelines and the things that would be required to follow the state laws and, you know, the travel laws and the road laws in general. So in front of you, we have a application that we're looking at getting approved or changed if you'd like to have it changed. But that gives you the ability to, and anybody the ability to buy or lease a crosswalk. The way I see it is it's leasing it. It would be for 3 years. The initial deposit is $500, and then it's $1,500, basically a bank that sits there. As long as whoever purchases the said sidewalk maintains it at least twice a year, keeps it up to date, and it doesn't fall behind, then after the 3 years, they get their $1,500 back.
Thank you. And then Vice Mayor Buckland, did you have a question?
Oh, no, Councilmember Osenga.
Yeah, I just had a couple questions. One, you were talking about how I guess I needed some clarification on who's maintaining what in a crosswalk. I understand that there are different types of paint, you have reflective paint, et cetera, for use on this thing, so who is painting what?
So, this Public Works will always take care of the white portions, so whether they're in the ladder or they're in the traverse, which is the two solid lines, those would be maintained and taken care of by Public Works, because that's what they do. But, the art itself, that has to be maintained. I even made a little checklist for anybody that were to apply. It gives them where they could even purchase the paint for it in Anchorage. But, you know, the guidelines specifically state, you know, no signage that looks like or could impede traffic. There's, you know, no uses of even just the symbols, no wording, no advertisement. I've had a lot of people contact me in regards to it, you know, wanting to do like a totem pole. We've had people wanting to do fish. We've had people wanting to do a Mount Marathon, you know, logo going up the Mount Marathon showing the race at the start line. So we've had a lot of positive feedback for it. The guidelines, I've talked with Public Works. If they fail to maintain it and not update it, then they'll just come in and paint over it and put the white lines back.
Councilmember Osenga?
Okay, so we do have, the state does do paint our lines, right, in our roadway? This won't affect any kind of,
These won't affect
don't
where
want
they
to affect
paint.
any kind of green, okay. And then the other question I had was, is this only for City of Seward crosswalks, or is this state crosswalks across state roads, or just City of Seward?
It's just City of Seward.
Just City of Seward,
Mhm.
okay.
Does that answer all of your
Yeah, I think so.
questions? Okay.
I
Councilmember.
Originally, when I was watching your work sessions prior to, I guess I didn't see the one where this finally came out of, there was discussion of excluding certain areas of town, like keeping it out of the historical downtown, and where did that go?
Well, it was pushed back and forth between meetings, but in the overall, it came down to, you know, Public Works and myself, as well as the Planning and Zoning Commission, instead of tailgating and making people pick exactly where, you know, they have the ability to come in and say, this is why we want it here, you know, this is what it could do, and we have the ability to then take it within that 60 days, because we did put a 60-day turnaround on these applications, and one of the main reasons was if somebody were to come on and want it in a historic neighborhood and that it didn't really meet that, we would take it then to historic preservation and say, hey, just so you know, this is happening. Or, you know, do you want to talk to the artist and see how we can make it, you know, be more historical in nature? But like I said, I had a lot of good, positive feedback on it.
One quick follow-up then, so who has the final decision? Once all the paperwork comes in and that?
As long as it meets all the criterias with Public Works and Community Development, after going through all the processes of making sure every department, you know, we would do just like we do with building permits. here's a staff review, any departments see an issue with this, okay, well, we take it to PACAT, those kind of things, that's why that 60 days is in there. But then at the end, it would be, you know, as long as they meet the criteria that were set on the application, then we would turn around and make sure the deposit was done and allow them to move forward with their permitting.
Okay, thank you.
Further questions? Madam Clerk, can we call for the roll vote, please?
Voting on resolution 2021-054, Demas,
Yes.
Bachman,
Yes.
McClure,
Yes.
Casagrande,
Yes.
Cease,
Yes.
Osinga,
Yes.
Mayor Terry.
Yes.
This resolution has been approved.
On to other new business items, schedule a work session for electric rates on May 10th, 2021 at 5:30. That's found on page 202 of your agenda. How does that time with a work session of 1.5 hours with Mike Hubbard? To talk, Mike Hubbard's the financial engineering company presenting the information. Does that time work for everyone? Is that a good date, good time?
When was this, May 10th?
Right before the meeting.
May 10th, right before the meeting at
Oh.
5:30.
Okay.
So it looks, do you need a vote for that? I mean, it looks like there's no objection to that time.
If everybody's okay with it.
I would just ask that whatever's going to be presented at that meeting,
Sure as we can move forward in a timely and effective manner. Administration's goal is to execute the will of this body, and so we've put a lot of time and energy into putting together a survey that will be emailed to you guys tomorrow, hopefully tomorrow morning, as well as in there will be an attachment so you can reference back to the full budget book in there and look at the CIP list that's in your budget book. But again, the goal is to evaluate where council's at on your desire and which projects you guys want us to move forward with. And so then by the 24th of May, we'll have that data that we can come back and present to you guys. And the goal in that regard is not only to obtain clarity, but also to be respectful of your time during the work session so that we can present you with some hard data based on the input and feedback from each one of you guys. And then this body can make a determination on yes or no. Do we want to move forward with any capital improvement plan list and executing on those in the coming years? And looking forward to having Jeanette on board. I talked to her several times over the last couple weeks and just talking about what we can do to kind of lay the foundation so that she can hit the ground running and we can move forward with a lot of these CIP list items. Kind of a lot of talk out there about items staying on the list for a number of years, and I'm really looking forward to knocking off those projects that council feels like you guys want to see executed. So, yeah.
so I have a question first. So, you know, some of the things in this agenda statement are talking about financing options like bonds, tax increases, bank loans.
Mm-hmm.
So at the next meeting, will you have some of the financing possibilities there? I mean, it won't be super specific, but like this is a mechanism that we can employ.
Yep. So Jennifer Pay, our new finance director, has met with Jackie and I don't even know how many times to work through this. She's been keenly involved and she's been talking to the bond bank and looking at our financing options. And again, it's really going to depend on which items. I mean, we've been talking about the animal shelter. If that's $800,000, I talked to Jen, she goes, that's such a low dollar amount, you wouldn't even use the bond bank for it. So it really depends in terms of like the specifics on financing, on which items you want to go forward with. But just as a precursor, Jen will be participating as well to give us an idea of, you know, as we work on the next 2-year budget, you know, how do we build the revenue requirements into our next 2-year budget. So it's really going to depend on what you guys want to do, how many items, the cost, the time frame, etc. But we'll at least present you with some big picture financial information that will inform us on what our options are.
And part of that could either be checking in with the public, or we might say this is how we want the public's input. And
Yeah, and that's a good point. So I talked to the library director last week about looking at the meeting room, the community room, and looking at availability for this summer. If council decides that you want us to take your list of what you want us to work on and go make up like some mock storyboards and bring the public in so they can like vote on stuff. If you want us to do survey work, I talked to the chamber director and he's more than willing to partner with us on obtaining the feedback from businesses on if there's certain items on the CIP list that would benefit business in our community as we talk about COVID recovery. So those are all things that we're kind of laying out the groundwork for preliminarily what we can do. But again, that comes back to the timeline that you want us to execute on this on and which projects. But we're just trying to get our ducks in a row.
Okay, Councilmember Cease, sorry, I was
Yeah,
holding off.
sorry, Stephen, did you say that we'd have this next week?
Yeah, you'll have it tomorrow morning.
Tomorrow morning?
Madam Mayor, I also reached out to Jen today and try to get a process on if we did go out for bonds, what the process would be, how long it would take. So I could send that out information out or have part of it. So how long it would take to get that stuff done if we do go out for bonds.
And this is another one, if we're having this on the 24th, yeah, just getting that information ahead of time for review.
So this just goes back to the discussion that I was having before. So as a body, basically we're gonna hold everything until May 24th. We're gonna talk about it. And then what does the timeline look like? What does it look like before, and I'm not gonna say Public Works because that sends us down a rabbit hole. Let's say that we decide to put a pole in the ground. What is the process of what that looks like after May 24th, after we talk about it?
If I may. That's really going to depend on the projects or project that you guys decide. I mean, some of these are going to be more comprehensive than others. I guess maybe I'm reading between the lines. Administration is here to execute on those projects as quickly as you want us to. So we will move forward, and I mean, depending on which project it is, like the animal shelter, for instance, we've been talking a lot about the animal shelter. We're already working on the RFP. Jackie's done an awesome job, and that's going to be going out soon. So we've already got potentially a site listed. We've got an RFP going out, so that one we can execute on a lot quicker. If we go, say we want to move the public workshop, that's something that we're going to, I'm guessing, want to engage with the public on and choosing a site, and it's going to be more comprehensive. So I know that's not a great answer, but at the end of the day, we'll move it on. Administration will move on it as quickly as council wants us to. But it's going to depend on, I mean, each project's going to be different.
How we fund it would be the biggest.
That was.
Councilmember Demas.
So we're trying to get public input on where the Public Works building would go, but we're not getting public input on where the animal shelter is going?
We already did that.
We did that, it's already chosen.
It's staying in the same spot?
Yeah.
So we're not ready to move forward on any of the projects that we've talked about until we get the public input midsummer?
Well, it depends. I mean, some of them, I think 4 items on the CIP list, we've already got designs, we've got plans built. We have plans drawn up for them, so it's just really gonna depend on which projects you guys.
Which projects are they? I'm sorry.
It's a pretty comprehensive list. You'll
You got
it's-
4, you said.
Oh, the 4, I'm sorry, I don't know off the top of my head. I can give that to you tomorrow if you want.
Just one more question, if I may. I guess my one concern is just because everybody talks about how many years everything has been on the list, and we are ready to move forward, and we really do want to get some things done. Is everybody, I mean, I think it's important to get the public input, but isn't that what the work sessions are for, and public hearings and such?
So I mean, at the next work session, if we go through that CIP list and we all feel comfortable that we have our, constituent input, I think we could move forward from there. I was just leaving it open because I want to make sure that we're not moving forward on something that we haven't checked with the public on.
Right.
I mean, if we all feel comfortable, I think that we could have something, say, bring something to us at the next regular meeting to get a bond or come up with a plan or.
Okay, I like that.
That's how I feel.
Okay, I did have one more question. Norm, when you said that you had to find out where the Public Works building would be funded, you can't use any of the money that you're gonna sell that property for.
That's what's something that council will have to decide where it comes
Oh,
from.
that was a
Yes,
question, I didn't
Yes,
say it
yeah,
had to
it
be.
could come from
Okay.
that also.
All
Yes,
right,
ma'am.
thank you.
Oh, are we ready for that? Well, let's,
Well,
oh
just
yeah,
be ready.
let's finish this first. So
Yeah.
is that, so May 24th at 5 PM? Is that time? And we'll see that survey? So before we discuss the last item.
Madam
do we-
Mayor,
Yeah.
before you leave that subject, can I just request that administration to that work session brings any plans that we have and the municipal lands map that I saw today in Jackie's office?
And then Jessica, do we wanna go back, do you wanna show that video before we go to the next item?
I can, or if you wanna finish the discussion, we can do that.
I think we're done with this item, so we'll just cut over to that before we do the next item.
私たちは2019年8月に国際姉妹都市派遣事業に参加した北海道帯広市に住む高校生です。今回日夜助か友好ビデオキャンペーンということで、私たちの動画を通して日アラスカ間の友好交流の輪を広げられたら嬉しいです。心に残るエピソードは何ですか？私がスワードに行って心に残ったのは、北海道とはまた違う広大な自然をいろいろなアクティビティを通して体験できたことです。特に6時間くらいのクルーズはとても楽しいものでした。日本じゃ見られないようなとても大きな氷河や至近距離でのクジラやシャチ、アザラシを見た時の感動は今でも忘れません。また文化も言語も異なる人たちとの交流はとても勉強になりました。スワードの方々はとても親切で優しく温かい家族のような人たちでした。英語が聞き取れなかった時はゆっくり言ってくれたり、もう一度言ってくれたりと、英語を人前で話すのが少し恥ずかしいと思っていた私の価値観も変えてくれるものでした。スワードの経験からどのような刺激を受けましたか？スワードでは犬ぞりやジップラインなどたくさんのアクティビティをして臨時の方と触れ合ったり、ホームステイでホストファミリーと一緒に生活をしました。2週間で多くの人と出会い、言語の壁を越えお互いの気持ちを共有したり交流することで多様な価値観、考え方に触れることができました。スワードから帰った後驚いたのは、英語を聞いたり話したりすることへの抵抗感がなくなったことです。英語はコミュニケーションを取るためのツールなんだと改めて思い、以前よりも英語を身近に感じられるようになりました。海外に行った経験をどのように活かせましたか？アメリカでホームステイして日本とは違う文化
時間をたくさんすることができ、自分の視野を広げることができました。また本場の英語を2週間直接触れることで英語への苦手意識がなくなり、勉強面でも英語の能力を高めることができました。いつかコロナが収束してこの授業に参加する高校生のアドバイスはありますか？この授業はなかなか行けないアラスカという場所に留学することができ、また学校では学べないことを学べるチャンスなので、たくさん勉強して全力で遊んできてほしいと言っています。I was proud to have learned a valuable experience in Alaska thanks to my host family. I will never forget this memory. Thank you.
I will never forget the wonderful experience I had at SWAT. This experience changed my mindset for the better. Memories of time spent with you lifted me up when I was low. Thank you for giving me the wonderful memories. From my experience at SWAT, I decided to go to a university with a global campus. I really miss you. I'd like to go to SWAT again someday.
I want to see you again.
Great, wonderful. That was amazing that they won first place, so. Okay, getting back on our normal agenda, discuss funding for the developer reimbursement program. That's found on page 204, and I'll turn it over to administration.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Steve, you can talk on this one here.
All right, so 4 points. So this program was created in early 2019 with a specific intent of incentivizing residential development. As it currently stands, the program exists in code, but no funding mechanism was dedicated towards it, and so there's no current money associated with this program. I provided each of you guys a summary of the program and just some more information. We've got 2 applications. As it currently exists, neither of those applications is yet complete, but it's important for administration to bring this forward to you as council because the way code is written, administration, after receiving a completed application, administration has 3 meeting dates to bring forward to council a memorandum outlining the city manager's recommendations for whether to approve or deny the application, and if approving, in what amount. So I'll just read you guys a really quick excerpt from code. So as the program is written, it says the city may, so long as funds are available, reimburse developers for up to 50% of the cost of installing a public utility. So if council determines that you want to fund the 2 applications that currently exist, the total dollar amount would be approximately $284,245.54. And I sent you guys a breakdown in that email as well. The 2 applications are a little bit distinct. One of them by Mr. Zimmerman is, you guys are all aware of the Gateway development and where that's at. That is complete. at this point. The assessment district has already been conducted. That would be $213,985.54. The second one by Mr. Harmon is a little bit different. That development it has not begun as of yet. And although that functionally would probably work better to put in an application, obtain commitment from council on whether to pay for 50% of the utilities, that would make sense. Unfortunately, that's not the way this program is built. So a conversation needs to be had on what council wants to do with that. The projected cost, and we don't have a firm, but we have a projected cost of $134,520. So 50% of that would be $67,260. So for a total cost, if you were to decide to fund the full 50% that's available in the developer reimbursement program, again, it's $281,000 and change. I've gotten a lot of questions from several members of council on what administration's recommendation is. So if council desires to fund the program, administration would recommend that funds be pulled from the general fund reserves, because we don't have any money set aside for this program at this time. And then you could, as an option, repay back into the general fund reserves with some of the proceeds from the Fort Raymond property sale to Chugachimit that we're currently negotiating. That's one option. And just as a closing note, and I don't want to go down a rabbit hole on here, but I think it's really important that we talk about it, is as it stands, the program is not set up to effectively incentivize development, and that's after talking with both Mr. Harmon and Mr. Zimmerman, that they lamented that the program has got great intentions. Everybody in this community acknowledges that we've got a huge unmet demand for residential housing. Talking with the chamber, that's one of the biggest barriers to us growing this community. So we definitely need to incentivize residential development. As it currently stands, this program is not functionally built to do that because it doesn't guarantee the developer ahead of time what their cost of bringing utilities in is going to be. And so it would be good to create a program after soliciting the feedback of developers, realtors, and other community stakeholders, including the chamber, etc., to talk about something that we can do to truly incentivize development. And I just want to leave that with you guys because I think it's really important in terms of how you look at funding this program. If there is a desire to create something that's better, that's going to incentivize growth more effectively, the most you would need to put in would be $281,000 to meet the demand from the two applicants as they currently exist. I know I just threw a bunch at you, but that's kind of where we're at.
Is Harmon's anywhere, is it part of the Gateway, or is that his own property going up to Mount Haven?
No, ma'am, that's a different property.
You want to come out?
Yeah.
It's in Forest State.
Yeah.
Okay, that's what.
It's separate from Gateway.
I know, I just wondered if it was
Okay.
that property or the other, okay.
So I met with administration today and we discussed this, and there's a lot of flaws in this program. The first flaw is that if we threw $281,000 into this pot right now, there's still no funding mechanism. There's nothing, we can't just keep on throwing money into the pot. So I feel like the flaw is to the developers. The flaw is on our side not holding the developers accountable to, are you going to sit on these, are we gonna reimburse you whatever amount of money, and are you just gonna sit on them and wait for prices to inflate? What's the plan for development? When are you gonna have single families in there? When are the utilities gonna be turned on? When are they gonna start paying property taxes with development on them? And we just kind of left that whole part out of the program. There's no funding to the program. So we have this really beautiful idea, but I mean, when I first sat down with administration today, the first thought was like, sure, throw throw $300,000 in there. Let's get stuff moving. But then the next question that I had to sit with is, well, how's that gonna come back? How do we get that back? It's just gone. Seems like it needs to be something, when this whole program first started, it was either
self-sustainable.
Yeah, either the new ratepayers that came online and that property taxes funded this pot for the next 5 years, so it was always growing, but we just don't have that. So I don't know if maybe before making any crazy decisions tonight, we need to look to our new finance director and ask her if she has any ideas what that can look like.
I guess that brings up one more thing that I didn't mention, and that's that this is a reimbursement program. It's not a credit. So the 13 lots in the Gateway subdivision are assessed at just shy of $33,000 times 13. It's $427,000. So the developer pays the assessment, the full $33,000, and then the application is considered complete and comes back before this body, and then you guys deliberate on how much you want to reimburse it to. But it's not a credit, it's a reimbursement. And so no funds would go to the developer until after the assessment was paid.
Right.
Sorry.
That's fine. So I just want to say I 100% agree with you, because if we're going to keep doing this, we need to have a funding mechanism obviously in place. Like, we don't want to do this ad hoc each time. However, the one thing, I was sitting in the audience when this program was being developed, and there was a lot of confusion at those meetings between the code and this program, and I think at some point a lot of council thought it was the same and developers thought it was the same, and so I think it was back and forth, and that's just me in the public. Maybe there was a different understanding on the dais, but so my concern right now is, I would like to see it at least initially funded to the minimum, and because we've already had development, I feel like there's at least one developer that moved forward in good faith based on some of that. Have that funded, like, we're not approving his application tonight, but have funds available that when that comes back to us, we can make the determination if it should be approved or not approved. But I do like our idea of, opening up more city property potentially to sell. So if we initially fund it the first time out of our reserves, as property sells to replace that would be, I don't mind that suggestion. But I think it's a limited, kind of a one-time only until we further look at the program in general.
And just to throw it out there, we could create a program where we use a municipal land sale, like the mayor mentioned, to fund an expansion of utilities. If we build it, they will come, right? So we can sell city land to obtain the revenue necessary to fund a program, and we can build a program that's more functional, that meets the needs of developers to incentivize development. Something like an application process. So we've got a bank of money in this developer program, call it whatever you want. An application comes in to administration immediately at the next council meeting brings an agenda statement, a memorandum, whatever you want to call it, back before council, and then council can evaluate. In the instance of Mr. Harmon, as an example, he's kind of trying to do it the more functional way of saying, I'm thinking about doing this development. It's going to cost approximately $134,000. And then this body could deliberate and decide, do we want to fund that $67,000 expansion? The other tricky thing is, we talk about, and Doug's in the room and he can tell you, we need some, a lot of places, like especially across the bay, we talk about bring in a lift station over there, or bring in another sewer lagoon, or some of those really high ticket items that are going to be required for more development. We're going to need to generate a large amount of revenue to do that. So.
But something like that is if, as we open up more property, if we end up selling property over there, then those land sales could go then into the utilities.
Exactly.
Comments, questions?
Where are we procedurally? Are we just discussing this, and then administration's going to bring forward? Like, if I don't say right now I'm not okay with putting $280,000 into a fund, is there going to be a resolution that's going to come forward, and then
No, ma'am. So how it's going to work is, assuming Mr. Zimmerman completes his application, then this administration would bring back to you sorry, let me back up. So as a precursor, this program would have to be funded first. And then, once the program is funded with the $214,000 to fulfill that 50%, then once the application is complete, then administration would bring a memorandum back to you, either stating to you that the application is complete, they meet all the program requirements, and with a recommendation. And then council would determine what you want to do with that.
Which I didn't bring my code book, but can I ask a quick question? How, and, you know, I'm just thinking this through. That can't be done in the same resolution?
We could do it, well, so.
Like say you bring forward, because I didn't bring that code, I forgot to grab my code book, but, so like say you bring forward a fully approved application of the, you know, and you recommend the 50% reimbursement, within those sections, couldn't you fund that money at the same time that we approve the?
I think we could put in the recommendation.
Let me,
Okay.
okay. So let me read it off. So section C says, Planning and Zoning Commission shall review the application and determine if the applicant meets the requirements for reimbursement. That's already taken place with Mr. Zimmerman, for clarity. And forward recommendation to the city manager's office. No more than 3 regular scheduled council meetings after receiving the notice of filing and complete application from the clerk. The city manager shall submit a written memorandum to council, which shall include a recommendation to approve or deny the application, a recommended amount of reimbursement, if any, and a statement regarding the reasons for granting or denying the application. Council shall adopt or deny the city manager's recommendation by resolution. Council's decision to reject or accept the application shall be a final decision by the city.
But where does it say about funding the program?
So back in section A, it said the city may, so long as funds are available, reimburse developers for up to 50% of the cost of installing a public utility on undeveloped land for which a special improvement district was created.
But could we do it in the same resolution?
So when we talked to the attorney about it, Brooks guided administration that is a precursor based on the way this is written. Administration can't bring a memo or a resolution in front of you until there's funds available in the program.
Right. So, I know that, I mean, the developer that is currently being spoke of did everything in good faith, but it was also really clear that that program was not funded.
Okay.
And I think that what we need to do as a body is we need to say, okay, developer, we see that you need money and we're gonna work as a body to find a way to get funds in there and find a way to fund it. Because, again, I don't feel comfortable just throwing our reserves in a pot with no, I mean, and then saying, well, one day we might sell this and one day we might sell that. Like, it needs to be something that developer that's getting that money is somehow, whatever they're doing is bringing money back to that pot for the next developer to come and reap those benefits.
That happens though, because then, so talk about that happens, because that's how we would pay it back. So
Okay.
do that piece.
Right, so in theory, so thus far the city has paid for Mr. Zimmerman's project $427,971, okay? So we've put the utilities in, okay? That's the basis upon which the assessment of $33,000 per lot. So you could, so once that full $427,000 is paid, it's gonna get paid, okay, starting in November. You could take that money and put some of it back into that developer reimbursement program. And then if you approve the full 50% back, then half of that 427, so call it $214,000 would be repaid back. So you would have $214,000 sitting in a lump sum in that account. The only caveat to that, and I apologize I didn't bring these numbers, was some of our enterprise funds paid for bringing in the utilities. Doug's probably smiling over there, I'm guessing. But those, so electric and public works, out of their accounts, paid for part of that 427. I don't know the specific dollars, I apologize I didn't bring that with me. But at the end of the day, if you did approve that full 50%, $214,000 of it would still be sitting there available for if you want to leave it in this account, whatever the case may be.
Can I just interject? I'm sorry,
Maybe.
but I just want to give you.
Keep it to the, what we're talking about.
You keep asking, can we bring it forward at the same resolution? I just want to point out the code right now, the way it states, is the application goes to the clerk, from the clerk to the city manager. The city manager then sends it to planning and zoning. Planning and zoning reviews the application.
Yeah, I think the city attorney said it has to be set up first.
Yeah, but we were talking about A and B, but C falls in line with that when you're asking to bring forward a resolution on not have to doing this every time with an applicant. The way around that was you guys approve the overall plan and how it's funded, but when it comes down to spending it and using it, it would go to planning and zoning, and then once planning and zoning does the requirements for reimbursement and recommendations, the city manager then turns around and brings that to you, saying, okay, you have this much in here, and we're gonna use this much. So, just to help you on that.
Yeah, we just don't have anything in there right now to even have that.
So if council desires for administration to be bringing something before you, we first need money put into that account.
Go ahead, Vice Mayor Buckland.
I think this, I understand what everybody's saying. I do get that, what I don't get is that I don't think that money should come from our reserves. That money should come from the utilities, because eventually that's where that money's gonna go back to. In the general sense, right? The outside of that is taxes and extra spending that's gonna then go into sales tax. And I do think there needs to be a plan of how much money is gonna be. One, I think with specific projects that are maybe closer and easier accessible, they might not need as much money. But projects that are farther or in other places might need more money. So what then are the parameters of how much money we're giving to somebody? We're just saying, oh, well, yeah, you can have $200,000, you can have $300,000, you know, what does that look like too? So I think also the project needs to be assessed to how much revenue are we gonna make from that, right? As a business person, you think, how much money am I gonna make from this, and is that gonna pay off from what I'm giving them? So if that can't be put together and said, well, I'm gonna benefit from this in this amount of time, I wouldn't do that project, or wouldn't spend money on it.
And I think you'd hit the nail on the head there for why we need to rethink the program that we're using to incentivize development, because as it exists, it doesn't do what you're saying.
But where we are right now is the program that got approved that we move forward with, which we need to be moving forward with things. Just because we don't hit it out of the ballpark doesn't mean it was a bad hit. It just means we're on first base and there's more work to be done. Councilmember DeMoss?
Can we have a specific financial plan for the $284,000 or $1,000 that you're asking for? Why can't we just pick out some land and sell it and fund it?
So like we have a proposal before us, could we just parlay, if we choose to sell that property to Chugachmute, can that go straight into the fund? But do the timelines sync up with what? Because my fear is we have a subdivision up there that I think has been pulled off the market until something like this gets decided.
I think the timeline is not really close. I think Ms. Zimmerman's ready to move forward, and I don't know how long the GFU is going to take to, we're still waiting on the appraisal and stuff like that. But that, just saying, if council directs us to initially pull it out of the reserves until that GFU land transition goes and sells, then we replace that money back into the reserves to cover that we took out to get Mr. Zimmerman moving and sell that property.
So are there other pots of money? I mean, the reserves is our savings account. Is there another pot of money to get cash in or get that funded in a timely manner?
I can look at that. I guess I go back to the fact that it's a reimbursement. And so what you're talking about doing is moving money out of the general fund reserves into that development or reimbursement program account. And then once the $427,000 is paid, then you take half of it and give it back. So you're getting a check in for $427,000. You're turning around and writing a check for $214,000. Then you can put that money back into the reserves if you want, if you don't want to use this program again.
So we could zero out the
You
program.
could zero out the account and then take that, because at the end of the day, we're going to get $427,000, and then the question is, do we want to send a check back for half of that? And if the intention is to not use this program again, you take that $214,000 and you pull it out of that account and put it back into the utilities. If the intention is not to continue to use this program.
I think the intention is to use the program or some version of it, a better one, because that's already been discussed, right? So I would like to see the program, a healthy program that can be self-sustainable, and then we can make some decisions. I mean, I know we took the lots off the market, but
What would be, so with the application that might be, if it gets completed and come before us, what would be the recommendation at that point?
I don't feel comfortable saying we can put $300,000 into a pot, because we told some people that we might.
So we didn't lend any money, just for clarity, we paid to bring the utilities into the subdivision.
Through an assessment district.
Yeah.
So there is a resolution for that?
Correct.
Okay.
Councilmember Steves?
Well, when she was talking about a loan, and it's not like I was thinking, it's not a loan. We took it in there, he owes this bill. But do we want to give him 50% of it back and take whatever is left? And so it's going to short our power bill and our water and sewer, those people, and their profit, because it's coming out of theirs. Right, but it would, right to start with. Correct? I didn't say that right.
I'm not tracking you.
The money
Okay.
did come from Public Works and on electric.
It didn't come, I'm not talking about handing you the money.
No, no.
I'm talking about the time and their expenses came from them. So was there time and expenses that they worked in it? Is that 400-some
I
thousand?
think they used a contractor.
They did, no city employees were used during this assessment. It was
Okay.
a contractor paid for all of it. The city paid those invoices off of that contract.
Okay. I just,
Where did that come from that we paid the contractor, is what she's getting at. That was taken out of some of the Public Works, water, sewer, and from the electric, out of those funds, which means now those rates have to go up to make up for it. You got our rate program going right now, that we have all those funds shown where they're going and what's gonna come up with the water and sewer infrastructure. When that first went through the assessment district, the way I was told was we'd pay that back and that money would go back in those accounts. What we're looking at right now, and I don't know the split, I believe that the water or the sewer, whichever it was, took a $375,000 hit, or I don't know what the exact numbers are. Does that never come back? And so to get that back for our other programs, we have to raise water and sewer rates. It's our only revenue to do those. We have to raise it even more than what we were looking at. So that's my
Well,
question.
it
Yeah, that's why we're
depends
talking about
too,
selling
it
the land.
depends too on, then you have more users on your system. Did you have a comment?
I was just gonna say, as confused as I am now, and the confusing way this all came about, I think we did move forward with the plan. We did try to start developing a subdivision, and I would hate to see us get to a point where we just stop now. I think progress should probably be made and continue. I just can't see getting to this point and then saying, we're done, and then letting it sit there.
Now we're talking about how we're gonna pay for it.
So honestly, that's why I'm a little confused, because when we talk about having that CIP meeting, I hear some council members saying, we're wasting time, we need to move forward, and then I feel like this is moving forward with something. So that's where I just am a little confused. Go ahead.
Yeah, so with that said, I think we should schedule a work session, and I think June, the first meeting in June would be our next work session, just to follow the suit of how we're doing everything else. And then we can have a work session to discuss possible funding of this fund.
Okay, then those lots, I guess, are gonna sit and not be developed, and so that's where I feel like if we're a council that are doing things, this is one thing that was started last year, 2 years ago, and we're just at the finish line and now we're hesitating.
So can I, just for clarification, if I was if I had a bill of $427,000, I think I would start selling the lots to get that paid. Right? I don't understand why it's our responsibility that they're canceled right now. I think I'm missing a piece.
I am too, so I don't know if, because we still should be moving on. That bill still has to be paid. If there's no timeline, I'm saying how long we can reimburse. So those, I mean, I understand what you're saying, that we should still be moving on. And the $400,000 still has to be paid. We are not on a timeline on deciding when we have to reimburse the builder for any of that. But technically, we have loaned that money.
We'll be on a timeline when they complete their application.
So once the application is complete, then we have 3 meetings. So that's when the clock starts ticking, is once the application is complete.
Okay, I mean, if it's the will of the body to wait till June, what's that first meeting in June, and let's have a work session. Go ahead.
Just to be clear, I am looking forward to moving forward on a lot of projects. I just think that it's important that we make sure it's an equitable, process for everybody, and that there's obviously flaws in the system, so I don't feel comfortable just, moving forward without fixing that.
So in other words, the city of Seward got billed for this 400 and some thousand, correct? Okay, why did we get billed? It's his property. I thought that when this happened, he was gonna pay for everything, and then we were going to reimburse him for that. I didn't know we had to pay it out ahead of time. I thought that's the way it went.
So that is how an assessment district is done. So an assessment district, the subdivider comes in to the city, fills out a subdivision agreement, and says, look, I want help putting this in. I can't front all the money. So then we come to you as council and say, okay, we have a developer. It's looking at like a little over $370,000 at the time, if that's what it was. And we will get the money back. We basically front and pay all the invoices, and then we assess a value to each lot. So what Stephen keeps talking about is the $33,000 is the assessed value that after the project has been totally complete and done, every one of those 13 lots has an assessed value of $33,000 on it. In this scenario, Mayor was correct. It did get really confused between developer reimbursement and what an assessment district does. So the assessment district, we funded it for him. We took our money from Chugach refunds, reimbursement, and the final $90,000 that was over was what was taken out of water and wastewater. Just so everybody knows, it's about $45,000 out of each one of those accounts to make up that $90,000. The rest were different funds that had been sitting there, reimbursements through the state for different things. So that came forward. The tax roll then comes forward, and we say, okay, it's $420,000. We assess that price. Mr. Zimmerman was running the same track that the council was at the time. Here's an assessment district, here's your developer's reimbursement program. At one point in that, we said, we need to pull those apart because everybody's getting very confused on the difference. So Phil and Mr. Zimmerman understands that yes, we paid all the bills, the $427,000. We had that already funded, and we broke it down into these funds from reimbursements that were, a big portion of it was the Chugach reimbursement of that 300, the initial 300. he's coming forward saying, okay, I was told that if I do this, I do the assessment district with you, that I have the ability to apply for 50% back. And Mr. Zimmerman takes it in the mindset of there's $33,000 on each assessed lot. If I get my 50% back, then all I have to do to release the assessment price off of there is pay the $16,000 because the other was already promised to me. So that's why that confusion keeps happening, but a lot of the, you know, the other portion of when it gets paid back, where does it go? The big portion, the 300 and, I think it was 372 at the time, that came from the Chugach reimbursement through different state reimbursements. It didn't come out of funds. It was the initial 90,000, the original 90,000 at the end, because the price changed and they added 3 more lots to it. They took that, and that's why you have 45,000 from wastewater and 45,000 from water.
Okay, another question then. So when Phil decides to sell that property, and it costs $33,000 to put that money in there, he's gonna charge whoever he sells that property to the $33,000.
Yes, he has to, because
Okay.
we won't release the title to it.
Okay, so really, he didn't pay anything.
Not right now, no, because the 33 will come back to us.
I'm sorry, I'm confused.
So I guess the folks that were on council before, when this got approved, was there a funding mechanism discussed? No?
I wasn't on.
I can't remember. I didn't think that's the way it was. I assumed he had to pay it, and then we could reimburse him. I didn't have any idea that
That's
we were gonna
correct.
get
That's
that.
That's correct.
That's
That's correct.
exactly what's happening.
That's correct.
So then why has it been changed?
It hasn't. So he purchased the lots themselves, the raw lots. The city paid to bring the utilities in, and then the assessment, like Jackie talked about. So now Mr. Zimmerman owes the city $427,000. Once we receive that $427,000 from him, then we can bring a resolution in front of council to reimburse him for half of that $427,000.
So in other words, we are only gonna be out half of that, 50%.
$214,000.
Okay, but not, okay, so, but I just thought when you said that we were paying the contractors to do that, we have to write them a check.
No. At this point, we're owed $427,000.
I mean, they're gonna write us a check, I'm
Correct.
sorry.
The question is just, do you turn around and write a check for half of that back
With who?
to Mr. Zimmerman?
Why? Zimmerman didn't pay the 400.
But when he sells the land, then he's paying us back, and so then Mr. Zimmerman has paid $427,000 to add utilities. We paid it first, him paying us back turns around and he is then paying $427,000 to put in utilities to 13 lots. We're just holding that bank right now.
Councilmember Cosgrove.
Madam Mayor, if I may ask you, or administration, does the code say that we can't give the reimbursement back until he pays for the assessment? Is there any connection in the reimbursement program that the assessments have to be paid before they can be reimbursed?
No, because they don't line up, they're not the same thing. So a developer reimbursement program is different than an assessment district. So in the code for developer reimbursement, it's specifically about what the developer puts in. So in the subdivision and the assessment, we do have that wording that says you must pay this before you can sell it. Like it has to be, first, it's all recorded on every lot. So if Mr. Zimmerman sells all 13 lots tomorrow, all 13 of them have a recorded document that says $33,000 is owed to the city of Seward off this sale.
So I guess my preference was, I do want to incentivize development in Seward, and if private developers are reaping a benefit of that, that's why they develop. You know, so I mean, that's why we're incentivizing development, so that we have housing being developed. You know, it's not about how much the city can make, it's about, providing money to private businesses to get that moving forward. But if that's not the will of the council, or if we want to have that funding mechanism in place first, then we absolutely, I just thought we had already moved forward, but maybe I'm mistaken. Vice Mayor?
Totally agree with you 100%, but the process has to be equitable and fair to everyone in the future who's going to apply. If we just give one person what they want right now, how does that look later on when then somebody else is asking, well, you gave him 200,000, so I need 200,000 too. If the funds are available up to 50%, I'm totally agree with you, but I think that it needs to be clarified on what amount and how that is going to look moving forward, rather than just saying, if funds are available up to 50% in really wide swaths of language, and then say, how are we moving forward to do that again?
But can I just say though, so these are the people, it is case by case, because these are the people stepping forward and taking risk. And one person is going to take more risk in developing more property, and another person is going to take smaller risk developing less property. And that's why the language got developed, it just hasn't been funded. So there's an equitable process in place. What hasn't been set up is the funding mechanism at the end result, right? Because the process was adopted by council.
So I don't know enough. I only know my perspective of what has happened, because this is all new. And I know this is a long discussion and drawn out, so I apologize. But my question would be, why are the lots not being sold right now? I mean, you mentioned that they've been canceled.
Yeah, and I don't know that either. All I know is what's been adopted by code, which is the process that contractors are trying to follow, and for that developer reimbursement.
Right.
So do we, if they're following the process and have done everything, is it our judgment on whether it's good? I mean, how is that equitable? Go ahead.
So my judgment is that there are 13 lots that could be sold right now that are not being sold, and I don't understand why. So I'm putting my heels in to be why would I take ratepayers' dollars to make this development complete if they're not even for sale? That's what I don't, and I can call Phil but I can't call him right now. I can ask him those questions.
He says you can call him.
So, I don't know if what we're looking for right now is to make a decision to throw $300,000 in a pot.
Well, so I think the decision right now is, are we going to have administration bring a suggestion forward on how they're going to fund that, so then the application can come forward?
Okay.
Exactly.
Because right now, the application of what someone has already done in good faith, and even if we fund it, we might turn down the application. It still has to come to us. Demas first, and then.
I'm good.
Okay.
Okay, so now we're gonna pay the contractors $400 and some thousand.
We already did.
Well, okay, so we paid them, so it's out of our pocket, the cities, already. So now we're gonna turn around and write Bill Zimmerman a check for 200.
After he pays us back.
Pardon?
After he pays us back, the 400
Okay,
and some
that's what
thousand.
I said. That's what I want to know, because otherwise we're paying $700. Okay. You
And
do.
just to clarify, I wanted to give you guys numbers, because I know Cheryl loves numbers.
But I have to write them down.
So in
We'll send it to you,
resolution
Cheryl.
2020-006, this was the original portion to start the assessment district, so everyone knows. The funding amount of $281,043.46 came from Chugach Electric Association Electric Fund, which is appropriated, and they gave the account. So it was the refund from Chugach. The funding in the amount of $56,431.54 was taken out of the general fund and put into this utility improvement development infrastructure account. Then, when the tax roll came forward, that was 2021-003. And that was for an additional $90,000, above the whole job cost $427,000. $45,000 and some change came from water, and $45,000 and some change came from wastewater, to make up that $90,000 difference. So the $281.43 was a refund that was received, and I can tell you that just by reading what they've written in the sections, the Utility Improvement District Infrastructure account would be what we were talking about when a reimbursement account came. The original thought process was fund that reimbursement account from this refund. Use this refund to put it in to add more infrastructure. So right now, today, if you as a council said, we're gonna give 50% back to Mr. Zimmerman and 50% back to Mr. Harmon to do his development, what's the number?
Total,
281.
281, 245.
So if Mr. Zimmerman sells all 13 lots today and then comes back and says, okay, here's my developer's reimbursement. I paid $428,000. I want I'd like 50% of it back. You still have that $281,000 that was initially started by a refund from Chugach that would go into that infrastructure fund or developer reimbursement fund.
Okay, so now I go and I buy one of his lots, and I know it's assessment to have that stuff in there for $33,000. All right, so now I get a loan for the lot and for the assessment and for his building up there, and I have so much deposit. So he gets that to start with in his fund. Even if we get paid back $33,000.
And Mr. Zimmerman texted me, just so everyone knows, he said, I can explain that the reason I've taken them off the market is because, to be honest, I don't really know what to charge for the lots. Am I charging the $33,000 plus what I need to make off of the lot? Or am I charging the $16,000 plus what I need to make off the lot?
Well, you're not trying to give the buyer the discount, you're giving the builder. I don't know, but I would like to have that printed out.
I'll send it to you.
How do we want to move forward?
Well, that isn't anything we vote on tonight, is it?
No, I know, but they're looking for recommendations on
Oh,
what
okay.
to, so I mean, I think they want to get a temperature taken in the room.
Okay, I think we ought to do it.
I'd like to have suggested ways of how to fund the fund, how the fund will be funded.
Long term.
Yeah. Not just for this one time, but for the life of the fund.
So short, I guess tonight, biggest thing is short term, yay or nay on putting $214,000 for Mr. Zimmerman and $67,000 for Mr. Harmon. Yay or nay, does council want us to put money in there?
And let me clarify, it's not for them. It would be in that.
In the I'm sorry.
Yeah, yeah.
In the program, so that when these applications are complete,
There's potentially funds.
we are permitted, and you're not deciding tonight whether to approve those applications. You're just deciding whether to even basically consider them, because you can't consider them if there's no funds available. So do you want to put funds in there so that you have the opportunity to consider them once the applications are complete?
So that's short term.
That's short term. Long term, I agree that we should have a work session and talk about building something that's more functional and what the funding mechanism is. And there's tons of possibilities that are really great there, but that's kind of tertiary to what we need to accomplish tonight, which is, you want to put $281,000 into a developer reimbursement program account so that you're able to approve or deny the applications that are going to be in front of you potentially.
So let's, Councilmember Cuthbert.
So I do not want to start bending the rules and start considering somebody that's doing the application a different way. So if you're asking my opinion, I think code is code. We need to stick to code. We need to stick to the application process. We can't start bending and making new exceptions for new ideas when we can't even figure out what we have before us. And second of all, I do not support just putting money in this pot without having a funding mechanism for what we're putting in. Like, I would never just put $100 in something without knowing how I'm going to make it back. So I need both. I can't have short-term and long-term. I need the short and the long-term.
Okay, Councilmember, I'll go around. Councilmember Demas.
Yeah, basically, you know, I really would love to see this program flourish and move forward. And we talked today a lot about, you know, a lot of exciting things that can happen. But I echo what Missy said.
Councilmember Osager.
And I can agree with what Councilmember Casagrande said, but I'm kind of wondering if this, in the short term, this program actually, could this program be just for this particular applications now, and then we can start over with something that might be a little better than this particular program, and then we're not actually worried. I mean, it'll get reimbursed or refund, or we would get the money back in these two applications, and then in the long term we can think of a different program that might be a little more user friendly and make a little bit more sense. So this tonight, I feel like we're just looking at these two in particular and not really anything else. So that's my view, and in that case, I'm for moving forward just to keep things going in this instance, and then in the future we would discuss a different program, maybe one that might be a little easier to understand and work with, whereas this one might not be.
Councilmember Cease, did you have a comment?
No, I agree that we've already halfway promised them, and that's what they were going on, that they would get 50% of it back after they sell it. But I don't see how we would be able to afford to give it to them ahead of time. I mean,
Councilmember,
Well, Councilmember Osenga was making a lot of sense there. I think everyone, you know, we went into this, I can remember Mr. Zimmerman sitting there saying, you know, I mean, this has been a long-term thing. And we didn't do it, and we didn't do it, and we didn't help him, and I think in good faith we came up with this program, which apparently was flawed, but we didn't know. So I think we need to own up to it and take some money out of reserves and get this process going with him, because, you know, this is what everybody wants, housing, and we've just stopped 2 housing projects if we don't go along with this now, and then come up with something that's reasonable for the future, because obviously we didn't know how to go about it then, or we were led down the path the wrong way or something. So I would be for giving a go-ahead to come up with something to keep him, letting him sell, you know, so he can go and sell the lots and start paying us back.
Vice Mayor?
I agree with Vice Mayor McClure, or,
That's okay, you can
Yeah.
say it. It's like,
I'm all getting
Throwback.
used today.
Yeah.
Sorry.
I do think that this is something that we should own up to. I just think it wasn't really well thought out, and with just a little bit more planning maybe for something in the future, I do think we do need to look towards honoring this. I don't think that it should come out of the reserves. Hopefully we can get some other solutions on maybe where that money can come from. Yes, I do agree with that, and I don't think that we should stop any more housing projects.
Did you have a further comment, Councilmember Cease?
no, I really didn't. I don't think we
I
should
thought-
wait.
I
I
thought
think
you
we
were
should go into it.
Councilmember Casper?
So, assuming that each lot is, I mean, the question of should I be selling them for, you know, $33,000 assessment or $16,000 assessment, the price of land right now, it doesn't matter if you do 33,000 or 16,000. It's a no-lose situation. So again, I just don't understand why they're canceled, because if they were my land, it's like there's a lot of people that want land right now. So again, my fear is that we subsidize this, and then all of a sudden we find out, well, you can't buy my land because I also have to build, and then nobody wants to buy it because they don't want to be forced into being funneled into having only one builder, and then we just have lots that are sitting there and we're looking around for somebody else that might develop and open some more lands because these lands aren't moving. So there's nothing in our application process that incentivizes or motivates a developer to let go of once they've been reimbursed and they've gotten utilities that are affordable. What is it in our program that motivates them or gives us some sort of promise that these lands are gonna open up and be available for people to purchase?
When administration brings it back to us to reimburse, could we at that time set a timeline to have the lots sold in a timely manner?
We'll have to check with the
with
attorney on that
Yeah,
one.
check with Brooks.
Just to go back to what we were talking about in terms of incentive to sell, he's gonna start paying, Mr. Zimmerman's gonna start paying, back to Vice Mayor Baclan's point earlier, starting in November 1st at 12% interest, Jackie?
Yes.
12% interest on that $33,000. So there is an incentive to pay that, unless, I mean, nobody in the right mind wants to pay 12% interest on $33,000 without, I mean, selling them quickly would make sense business-wise.
That was it, thanks.
I guess my comments would be, it just feels a little to me like regressive bargaining. Like, I guess I was sitting in the audience and I was not on council for those work sessions, and it just felt like things were moving forward with both these. I 100% agree that we need to have a funding mechanism. I'd like to see that funding mechanism be land sales, so that we start generating, that would be the impetus for, getting more hands in the getting more land in the private sector. But maybe it can be twofold. And I guess in the short term, I agree that we need to if we're having a process on the books, we need to follow that process. So one of the applications, when it's completed, has followed that process.
Right.
If the other applicant wants to follow the process, then that's out there too, or he might want to wait until we come up with maybe a better process.
So given that, when the mayor just said selling city land to generate revenue for this, I looked around the room and everybody's given the yes. We're about to sell some city land. Potentially. But how does, that would be a mechanism to pay this $214,000, should we choose to. But
Can I ask one question before I go to you? So if we don't use reserves, is there any other money available?
well, going back to it, we're about to get a check for $427,000.
True.
And
Will
so
the
what you're
timing line up
talking,
with that?
well, it's a reimbursement, so we're gonna get a
Yeah.
check for $427
We have that
and then
money.
issue a credit for
Yeah.
$214. So it's not like,
Yeah.
we're moving money out of the general fund reserves to put it into this account, and then once the application is complete, then, and the $427,000 is paid, then we've got $427,000.
So does that solve our mechanism problem? Because won't we always have an assessment district wouldn't that be what the backstop for the funding mechanism for these developer reimbursements?
If the-
Wouldn't there always be that assessment check coming back?
Correct, and in theory, that's the premise upon which it was built,
Right.
but I don't think the thought was, we still need some seed money to start this program, right?
And just so you know, Mr. Zimmerman had.
Wait, I think, did you have a comment first? Okay, go ahead.
Mr. Zimmerman had stated when his application came forward, he's like, I don't even want a check back, like, take what you would reimburse me and keep it into the developer reimbursement fund, so for future growth, it could happen. He's like, but I just need to know that I'm not on for all 33,000 or 427,000. He's like, if you just don't write me a check, write a check to your account and put it in that developer reimbursement. And that's where he thought it was coming from, and that's how he thought that fund was going to be initially.
So for tonight, we obviously can't all agree and we're not gonna vote on this. Do you have enough to bring back to council for a vote and a resolution?
No. We need to know if council wants us to put money in this account.
But I mean, I don't know if you're gonna get 7 people saying that and we're not voting, but I think that, I don't know that you're gonna get everyone to agree tonight.
Then we can't move forward.
Well, you could bring an actionable item, but back to us for vote. So
Which-
this is not an action item, so to get an actual
Okay.
vote, we would just need we need a actual item to vote on.
We just want to make sure that that's something that council wants us to
Yes.
bring back in front of you.
Yes,
Okay.
Yes?
yes.
Okay.
Well, at least
Well,
two
I don't
of
know,
you.
Sue and I said yes, but I don't know if
We said
everybody else
yes,
did.
yes,
It needs further review.
Yeah.
yeah.
We need an actionable item.
We have
I
to
mean,
do
that-
something.
And, that might be voted down after our discussion tonight if we think about it, but if we need to have an actionable item in front of us.
Okay.
Okay.
So I also think if we do need, at the next meeting, to set up a work session on either funding this current program or deciding that we're gonna try something different.
We already have a work session, don't we?
No, I mean, to schedule a work session.
Oh.
And make some decisions there.
With the topic of what program council wants to have in place.
And funding,
Okay.
And funding, ongoing funding.
ongoing funding.
Next on the agenda, we did have some informational items and reports in the packet. City and Providence financials, does council have any questions regarding those?
Not yet.
City clerk memo verifying the receipt of the annual financial disclosure, that's on page 257. And then we did have some sewer boat harbor write-offs, if there's any questions on that.
I had one on the boats.
Go ahead.
Are they still sitting over in storage? The boats,
Which one now?
that you're gonna relieve the, boat harbor write-offs?
No, those boats are no longer around.
Okay.
Citizen comments. Madam Clerk, do we have anyone signed up for citizen comments?
We do not.
Anyone in the audience? Council and administration comments. We'll start off with administration.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Start off, I want to say congrats to Melody for the years of service at Harbor, working with her. It's been, she's been really, really helpful. It's nice to see a bunch of public in the council chambers tonight. And happy birthday to Liz, Councilmember. It's her birthday, just make sure everybody knows. I don't know if I'm gonna steal the mayor's thunder here, but JAG was approved for a Madrad grant for $639,712 for a 100-ton Grove hydraulic crane. It was one of, I can't remember how many small ports that got grant money. So it's a great thing for them for filling it out, so.
Only one in Alaska.
Only one in Alaska, great, thank you.
Awesome. 3 things. First off, I want to say hats off to PACAB and specifically Linda Paquette, who I thought did an awesome job during the work session for PACAB recently when they were working on the vessel storage rates. Linda did an amazing job coming up with solutions that turned into the resolution that's in front of you, so good job, Linda. Number 2, lots of really good dialogue tonight about CIP. I'm really looking forward to working with everybody in the next 15, 20 years plus and moving forward with residential development. I think that's going to be exciting, and that's kind of the cool, fun stuff that we get to work on. And then the cultural exchange program, it reminded me, sorry, I'm going to take a personal moment for a second. When I was a kid, my mom was the exchange student program coordinator at our local community college. And I have a lot of fond memories of like 40 and 50 people at family gatherings with like 15 different languages in the room. I remember as a little kid, I got to know some kids from Kuwait and Ethiopia, and that was really exciting to me. It kind of reminded me back to my childhood and teenage years, getting to spend a lot of multicultural holidays. And so I'm really looking forward to being involved in that if we get back to students from our sister city coming here, because I think that's an amazing thing. And that was one of the greatest joys I had growing up, was just to get to experience different cultures. So I hope that's something that we can move forward with into the future, because that's awesome.
Great, thank you. Councilmember Cease?
Well, I'm just saying, I'm glad to be back. Sorry, at least it helped being on Zoom while I was gone. But I want to thank everybody for the comments, and I would like to have those numbers figured out. I would like to get them by Thursday, and also Jackie, she's gone now, but what she was telling me all about, I'd like to have that printed for Thursday. I'm going to be out of town for 2 days. So then maybe I can really look at what they're talking about when it's all written. But I want to say I feel glad that I'm back, and happy birthday, ma'am. I'll put that on my phone now.
Councilmember Casagrande?
I'd like to say thank you to Community Development for all the work in the crosswalk application and program, and thank you Vice Mayor Buckland for getting that started. And it's really beautiful to see when, you know, someone's idea can come to fruition and see it through to completion. And I wish it all the best. I think it's a really great program. I had a appraisal done on a house that a year ago it appraised at $363,000, and today it appraises for $470,000. If we don't do something immediately about the no housing in this town, I don't know what's gonna happen. And I know, like, it kind of sounds backwards for me to sit here and say we have a huge housing problem here, but I don't want to just throw money to the wind to a developer that I can't see any. I can see progress that happened a year ago, but now they're still sitting there, and meanwhile all the rates of everything are just skyrocketing because there's nothing for sale. So I think that we really need to look hard and look quick at our CIP, because I think that that is a big part of everything that we're talking about. And I just really hope that whatever we do in the end game of helping incentivize people, that we're not forgetting the people that we're helping the most. So, thank you.
Councilmember Demas?
I want to say congratulations to our mayor for winning Business Person of the Year. I think that Seward is extremely lucky to have you, Mayor Terry, as our mayor, and with such a business-minded, just way about you, and just as focused and hardworking as you are for our community. I just think that we're really, really lucky. So I think that that was well deserved, and I was glad to see that. I also want to thank Community Development and Vice Mayor Buckland for the walkable mural. I'm really glad to see that come to completion as far as the application goes. And I think that's just a really cool thing for our community. And I also wanted to thank administration, Stephen especially, for working on this CIP and really just brainstorming about our housing issues, and really, I think, coming up with some good, bigger ideas. And, you know, I'm just really looking forward to moving forward with that. So, thanks.
Thank you. Councilmember Osenga?
First, I'd like to say, Cheryl, welcome back. Good to see you in person. Thank you. Happy retirement to Melody. Happy birthday, Councilmember Demas. I went down and spent some time on the beach Saturday morning and saw a bunch of kites and all sorts of people down there. So it was summertime, awesome. I thought it was great. There were people, the beach was just covered with people. It looked like it was a lot of fun. I had a lot of fun walking through it with the dog, so that was pretty good. And the video from the exchange students was pretty darn good video. It is fun. I actually was lucky enough in my last high school year to go to Japan and spend an August there with, not for the exchange program, but for our high school band. Our whole high school band and choir went. And we got to spend a whole bunch of time there and went to a bunch of different cities and a bunch of different hosts' homes. And it was just great, a lot of fun. And it is a really big eye-opener learning experience when you get to see a different culture like that up close and personal. So that was pretty awesome too. So everyone be safe out there and have a good one.
Councilmember McClure?
Okay, I echo everything that everybody said, pretty much. Happy birthday, Liz. It happens, you know. And there's probably cupcakes back there still, so. Congratulations to Melody. And there are birds coming here. There were about 70 white-fronted geese out at the head of the bay in a couple little groups. My brother's been going out there when he gets a break from my mom and watching the birds. It's really pretty neat. And I had the realization about a week ago that we really have to be careful. I think I say this every year in the summer and then in the fall, but there are bicyclists out there that are just zipping along, and you may be going through the harbor and trying to make a left turn, and watch for those bikes because they're there. I mean, I've watched some real close calls with people, and because we're just not used to it, I think, and on those especially sunny days, like when there's kites and everything else to look at, and people are biking and looking at kites, and you know, so we want to keep everybody safe. And also, you know, we're wearing the masks. We still have a bit of COVID going on here, so I just want to, you know, with the influx of a lot of people, just be COVID aware, as we have been, even if you have your shots.
Vice Mayor Buckland.
Happy birthday to Councilmember DeMoss. Congratulations to Mayor Terry on her award from the Chamber. It's really nice to be acknowledged by your peers and in that community, especially in the business community in Seward. That's a lot of, you know, so many small businesses and that really make up a really vibrant economy here, and the Chamber does an amazing job, and it was an awesome way for them to give back to the community, and they just keep kind of giving and keeping the community involved. It's been a long road for the walkable murals, and it's nice to be at the end of that, and now can move forward on a very expensive process going forward. And thank you for everyone who gives of their time, and all of our boards and our commissions and council. And it seems like every year is an election year for council, but I think it's time now to start thinking about who's. I had dinner with Councilmember Cease, and she's not going to run again, so there will be at least one seat open. So encourage people to. It's a tough job, but it can be very fulfilling at sometimes too. But yeah, and thank you.
Happy birthday to our Councilmember DeMoss. I want to thank Melody Moline. You know, just having those long-term city employees are just the backbone of what we do to service folks. Great job to Lori Landstrom with the Community Service Award from the Chamber. El Zernia with Mermaid Grotto, just a fantastic benefit. The CHC was the Chamber Board Special Award for all they've done to the community this year. But I might say go on the Chamber website and see all the nominations. There's a Tufted Puffin has done some amazing things. There's just a whole long list of folks there that were nominated and were very well deserved. I've seen, I think Seward, I want to keep out the word that Seward's open to visitors. I've read an article on AARP, yes, I'm not old, that highlighted Seward, which was wonderful because those are the folks that have disposable income and are willing to fly up here and then drive if they can find a rental car. Washington Post, Scott Ryerson and El Zernia both were both were interviewed in a Washington Post piece. It was covered in ADN, so Seward's still on the forefront. And just, you know what, tonight was so exciting because we have a council ready to move forward on projects and are ready to have those hard discussions on the best way to do so. So I think that that's really helpful, and I appreciate everyone's background knowledge and you know, everyone's financial knowledges, and just hashing these things out ahead of time before, you know, we go down a road that we shouldn't. So very much appreciated. And I want us to remember that we can have special meetings. Like, we can really roll up our sleeves and, you know, get some things done and just give ourselves a whole bunch of meetings over the summer. So we're ready for it. And with that, I will adjourn.
Adjourned at 10:24.
It's at 9 o'clock. I was